This Land Use Committee meeting of March 17, 2017 will come to order. I'm Councilmember Robert Carroll, Chair of the Land Use Committee. First of all, may I request that if anybody has cell phones or anything that makes noise, please turn it off or put it on the silent mode. With us this afternoon, we have with us the Vice Chair of the committee, Mr. Okama. We have Member Kelly King.
Aloha, Chair.
Don Guzman.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Ellie Cochran.
Aloha, Chair.
And Alika Atai. Good afternoon, excused at this time are Mike White, Stacy Cavello. And we also have with us Yukile Singapore. As for our Deputy Corporation Counsel, we have Jeff Orioka. Our Executive Branch representatives, we have Carol Ryman, Director of Housing and Human Concerns.
Aloha, Chair.
Buddy Almeida, Department of Housing and Human Concerns.
Good afternoon, Chair. And
with us available today, we have Will Spence, Planning Director, Paul Fosse, Staff Planner, Rowena Dagandaya, Deputy Director of Public Works or Representative, Dave Taylor, Director of Water Supply, and Mr. Taylor will be available from 2 to 3:30 today. Mike Miyamoto, Deputy Director of Environmental Management, and our Director of Parks of Recreation or a representative, and Captain Hiraki, Fire and Public Safety, and our Chief of Police. We have representatives of Makila Kai LLC, the developer of the project here to assist the developer today. These representatives include the project planner, attorney, traffic engineer, civil engineer, water resource engineer, and archaeologist. I will ask the developer's representatives to introduce himself and the other representatives when he gives his presentation, and without objection, I will designate these individuals as resource persons pursuant to Rule 18A of the Rules of the Council, as having special expertise in the proposed project and what is being considered today.
No objections.
Thank you. Committee staff, we have our legislative analysts, Gary Saldana, Committee Secretary, Carlita Balala, Hana District Office, we have Don Lono, Lanai District Office, we have Denise Fernandez, and Molokai District Office, we have Ella Alcan. We have one item on the agenda today, LU 2-1, Affordable Housing Projects, Chapter 21H, Hawaii Revised Statutes, Makila Kai Project, on the Opoko Lahaina. For individuals testifying in the chamber, please sign up at the desk just outside the door in the chamber. If testifying from one of the remote testimony sites, please sign up with the district office staff. Testimony will be limited to the items on the agenda today. Pursuant to the rules of the council, each testifier will be allowed 3 minutes to testify per item. When testifying, please state your name and any organization you may be representing. And to all those who are giving testimony today, we have many people that have signed up. When the 3-minute time comes, please finish up in a sentence so we can be considerate of all those waiting behind. Mr. Saldana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently, we have 25 individuals in the chamber signed up to testify. Are you prepared to start with testimony, sir?
Please, testimony is now open.
Very good. The first individual signed up to testify is David Miami. He will be followed by David Jenkins.
When you hear your name called to be next, please work your way over toward the podium so we don't have to wait a long time for you to reach there.
Second call for David Miami. Please come to the podium. Miami? Okay, I'm sorry, Minami. Okay, looks like. Okay, so let's have David Jenkins come to the mic. Following Mr. Jenkins will be Maribeth Friday.
And please state your name when you come down to the microphone and any organization you might be representing.
Okay, is this on? Good afternoon, committee members. My name is David Jenkins. I'm representing myself. I'm going to make just 3 points. I think Makila is not really a workforce housing community. That's the marketing spin. The real intent of the application going in as a 201H is something different. Second point is that you cannot be evaluating Makila in isolation. There's 2 other developments that are contiguous to it that are coming down the track to you, and the impact of the whole lot will be considerable, and Makila is about a third of that. And my third point that I'll make is that the use of 201H is stifling the opportunity for informed public input, and it's putting this committee under undue time pressure to prioritize private profit over evaluating permanent environmental difference. So point 1, Greg Brown is a builder of high-end homes, which in Laniapoco sell for between 3.5 and 4 million. And we feel that this newfound interest in affordable housing exists primarily to allow for the building of 24 $3.5 million homes on land that's currently zoned as 3 lots. The 24 workforce units that grab everybody's attention are the necessary investment cost to generate this entitlement. Workforce housing is not the primary objective, and the state LUC and Office of Planning have said this is an improper use of exemption provisions of the 201H procedure. Point 2, Makila should not be evaluated in isolation. 2 Peter Martin projects, Polanui Gardens and Makila are coming down the track to you, and that's going to give you about 260 lots in total in those fields that are currently empty. It's going to double the population of Laniapoco. So it's a huge environmental impact. This is called segmentation. It's the old Makila rural that you'll probably all remember, segmented into 3 smaller parts. And again, the state LUC and Office of Planning have said that really a district boundary amendment is necessary to accurately represent what's happening. And finally, and this is really the wonder of the internet, there was a thing that came out yesterday from the Makila team that said if the LU or the council do not approve the project, it will be the death of Makila. This is a one-shot deal. Regardless if you are going to speak or not, it's imperative for us to fill the council chamber with supporters. So congratulations.
3 minutes.
So no pressure, committee, but it's pretty clear that you either approve the ability of the developer to build 24 affordable housing, or you can kiss the offer of the affordable housing bye-bye. That's the deal that's in front of you. There doesn't seem to be a plan B of any sort.
I'm sorry, could you please conclude?
Sorry. There doesn't seem to be a plan B. That communication says it's this or nothing. And I don't think any of us, you or the public, should be put under this kind of time pressure. This needs this needs time for us all to think about it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next testifier is Maribeth Friday. She'll be followed by Amy Carisco.
Okay. Hello, my name is Maribeth Friday. I'm here on behalf of myself. I've been a special education teacher at King Kamehameha III in Lahaina for 11 years. I went to school for 8 years to get my specialization and my master's degree, and currently my take-home wages are $2,800 a month. This is my 6-month-old baby, and we will both be homeless in 2 weeks. I've been renting a studio in Laniapoco for the last 5 years. It's sold recently, and we have 45 days to vacate. We haven't been able to find anything affordable on the west side, so we have to leave. Daycare on the west side, as most of you know, is $1,000, and studios are going from anywhere from 16 to 18. That leaves me with nothing to live on. I was brought to this island. They moved me here from New York because of my degree, and I wasn't planning staying on long, but I fell in love. This is my community, my support, my family. I want to be here. This is where I want to raise my daughter. I chose to stay here and dedicate my life to the keiki of Maui, and sadly, this is kind of our last chance. If this and other workforce housing don't go through, we have to leave the island. And I've watched teacher after teacher, friend after friend leave for that same reason. And it's really hard as someone who works here to live, and I see so many people are in the same boat as us. And I never would have thought after 11 years of teaching full-time that we would be in this boat. We're going to have nowhere to live. I do have friends in Kihei, which means a 2-hour commute for the baby or an extra 2 hours a day away from the baby to teach. And, you know, we've worked really hard for this. I know a lot of us, we had to go get approval and take 8-hour classes and pay money, and we worked for this opportunity. So it's greatly, greatly needed. I'm speaking on behalf of so much friends and other teachers who couldn't be here today because they are working. And it's just something we need for our community, and it is a time-pressing matter. You know, we need to know, are we going to stay here or do we have to leave because we have nowhere to live? So it needs to be decided quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? See none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Next testifier, Mr. Chair, is Amy Carisco. She will be followed by David Nutter.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Amy Carisco. I am here today to support the proposed Makilikai project. I have been blessed to call Maui, specifically West Maui, my home for 15 years. I am a single mother. I work 2 jobs. I currently share my bedroom with both of my children. I envision a bigger, better future, a better living situation for them. Workforce housing developments are a wonderful thing. These projects help hardworking residents attain the dream of home ownership in a reality that is not easily accessible or affordable. There is a severe shortage of Maui homes priced for workforce buyers. In actuality, the rent that I currently pay to share a bedroom with my 2 children would almost exactly be the mortgage that I would pay for a 3 to 4 bedroom at this proposed Makilikai project. I commend all of the developers who have proposed workforce housing developments. I specifically wanted to commend the developer of Makilikai, Brown Development, for providing the opportunity to purchase a workforce home in such a desirable area of West Maui. This project will be located near schools, near our jobs, and community facilities. I support this project because 50% of Makilikai will be open space. This open space is designed to include a neighborhood park, pedestrian trails, and a large green belt along the already enacted future bypass. This project will provide its owner with large lots. Not only will these rural lots maintain the rural character of the area, but they will also provide the space to grow gardens. These gardens will create self-sufficiency and sustainability. Many of my years living here on West Maui, I lived in Honokaha Valley. I know all about sustainability and creating a garden for your family. Tourism is the largest contributor to our economy. A large portion of West Maui residents in need of workforce housing work in the hospitality industry. I myself work in the hospitality industry at 2 different large West Maui resorts. By supporting Makilikai, you support and enhance the lives of these residents who work in the hospitality industry. By supporting Makilikai, you support the backbone of the tourism industry. We too have dreams of owning a home on Maui. I strongly encourage the Land Use Commission and the Maui County Council to support Makilakai and all other workforce housing. Mahalo for your time.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
The next testifier is David Nutter. He will be followed by Stephen Brown.
Good afternoon, Chair. My background is a retired military surgeon of 36 years. And so my discussion today involves density and evacuation policies that are in present existence and the problems that this creates with this development and the associated subsequent developments that are pigtailed onto this this initial development. I'd like to point out a term that we use in emergency medicine, the golden hour, in which this refers to the time period lasting for 1 hour. I noticed some first responders, and perhaps this rings a bell in their work, in which the golden hour, that 1 hour, following a traumatic injury being sustained by casualty or medical emergencies, during which there is the highest likelihood that the prompt medical treatment will prevent death. We have 3 emergency evacuation routes in our area. I've lived in Lanapoko for the last decade. And I notice when I walk into a room, I notice the emergency exits. 2 up in this area. I notice here I would change as far as fire rules, I would change your hinges on the door, because if you exit this entire group now through either one of these doors, you would have a catastrophic problem getting through the doors, because the doors should open outwardly in order to provide egress. So my interest is not only evacuation, but access. I would like to be able to consider running a stretcher into this door to perhaps reach a scene of injury or a person that was in need of medical assistance. So right away I can see, as I have seen in our area, the county has approved these evacuation areas in our area, but have done nothing to verify that they are functional. They are as functional as perhaps your doors here in the county hearing area. So my interest is in access, and with specifics toward maximum access for the golden hour. I think it is your responsibility to preserve the safety of citizenry. I understand I'm watching the watch. But I put out a list of other points in a written format to cover other areas that I feel should be covered. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Could you, excuse me, sir, could you wait a moment?
Can you state your name again, please?
Ms.
Yes.
Covello.
I'd be most happy to answer any of your questions.
Would you mind stating your name?
My first name is David. Last name is Nutter, Nutter, and I'm a retired colonel in the U.S. Army for 36 years.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, sir. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Stephen Brown. He will be followed by Noel Manriquez.
After Mr. Brown, we will be checking with the satellite offices.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. I have 3 points that I would like to discuss, and many more that I would like to find out about, but apparently we're on a pretty short leash as far as time's concerned, so this is happening rather quickly, and I'm not feeling as though I'm able to gather all the information I would like to know about the project and where it's going. I feel constrained by that, so the time is precious. Let me get into my points. My first concern is traffic. Traffic on the Lahaina side of the island over here is just absolutely horrible. I no longer go to the Kapalua or the Kahului airport. I fly in at Kaanapali just because I can't trust the time it takes to get over to the airport. The road is congested, and nothing is being done about that. Furthermore, the traffic within Lahaina is absolutely at a standstill. I do not understand how we can continue to have more housing, more apartments for rent, more things approved, and I understand hundreds more of these units are coming online very soon, which will, whether they're visitors or residents, will only add to the traffic burden that we have on the Lahaina side of the island. So traffic is a huge concern. I don't know how it's going to be handled. I don't believe that this development helps that. Second, water. I'd like to know a lot more about the water involved with this project. I understand that agricultural water up in the Laniopoko area is being considered to be cut back because we may be out or not have sufficient supplies of ag water. And I have a 16-acre lot, and my plans, because I wanted to have an agricultural home there, is that I need the water to fulfill my agricultural plan. And if I'm going to be cut out of water because of a scarcity, then I'm going to have to change my plan. So that doesn't work for me. I also am concerned about the purity of the water because it's basically we're on a volcano. And I'm listening to, the aquifer. Well, quite honestly, the aquifer stops when it hits the solid rock. And the ground, I'm at about 5 foot, according to the people that did the survey on my land. I've got 5 foot of soil. So I don't have a big aquifer to drill wells. It only goes down 5 foot and hits Mother Earth. My time's out, so I've got to just finish. I'm very concerned about the fire danger. I've been caught in 2 fires this year alone when I could not get to my house because there's only one access point to my property. That means there's one access point out, and if the fire had started while I'd been home, I could not have gone away.
3 minutes.
So thank you very much for your time and attention. Those are my concerns. I'd be glad to answer anything else. I get my phone and email. I wish I had more time to look into this further, but apparently it's on a fast track. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you, sir. HANA office, do you have anybody waiting to give testimony? HANA?
Good afternoon, Chair. This is Dawn Lono at the HANA office, and there is no one waiting to testify.
Thank you. Molokai, do you have anybody waiting to give testimony? Mr. Saldana? One moment. It came real weak.
Hana off or Molokai?
Good afternoon, Chair. This is Ella Alcana Molokai, and there is no one here waiting to testify.
Thank you. Lanai, do you have anybody waiting to give testimony?
Good afternoon, Chair. This is Denise Fernandez on Lanai, and there is no one waiting to testify.
Thank you. Mr. Saldana?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next testifier will be Noelle Manriquez. She will be followed by Kevin Fiore.
Aloha, my name is Noelle Manriquez. I was born and raised in Lahaina. I am currently raising 2 children, 3 years and 1.5 years old, in Lahaina where I was raised. I am married to a man who was born on Oahu but raised on the west side of Maui. I live at the Front Street Apartments, which we all know is going up to market value soon. I work very hard. doing 2 casual jobs, and my husband works full-time. We are on a tight budget, making it hard to work on Maui. We already live in Lahaina, so we're not going to add to the traffic issues or the water issues. We were very excited about the potential of Makila Kai because it offers us a safe and affordable, secure future for our children, and a way where we won't have to decide, do they get a place to live or do they get to go to college? What do they get to eat for dinner? Basically, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
The next testifier, Mr. Chair, will be Kevin Fiore. He will be followed by Sandra Rivas.
My name is Kevin Fiore. I'm a general contractor on Maui. I specialize in very low-cost houses. Built many houses in the Hawaiian Homes for a little bit over $100,000 at zero profit. It's kind of my specialty. I don't have any interest in this project. I don't really have any discussion about the affordability of these houses or them being $1 million homes or any of that kind of thing. I do have a viewpoint that I do want to express to you guys, something I am passionate about. And I'm just going to read from this. Aloha, my friends. I've been here for 20 years. I know some of you have been here for generations. But I think I can speak on behalf of us all when I say nobody likes a concrete jungle. So why do we keep building them? We need half-acre lots that can keep Hawaii green and allow us to grow our own food. Right now, we depend on the world to ship us food and coal to burn. We can produce our own food and energy. We've made a lot of progress with solar and wind. We're definitely moving in the right direction. But up to 90% of our food is imported, meaning if the shipment stopped, we could only survive for 10 days. I believe Hawaiians don't want to rely on the mainland to survive. Maui's next priority should be building small local farms, or at least subdividing the land so it could be used as such anytime in the future. The Makila Kai project is proposing half-acre lots. This is perfect. It's a balance between nature and housing. I'm here to support this development, and I'd like to encourage you to support more projects like this one. Thank you. Mahalo nui loa.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Sandra Rivas. She'll be followed by David Kelso.
Aloha, my name is Miss Rivas. I'm currently the technology teacher at, and I'm pretty short, at King Kamehameha III. I'm here on my behalf, but I also represent a lot of my co-workers that weren't able to be here. I support Makila Kai currently. This project is what's keeping me in Lahaina. Housing's a lot more expensive in Lahaina, and commuting adds to the traffic and adds to my day. People are protesting because they don't want their property value going up, but without us, the economy will collapse and our keiki will suffer. We already live in Lahaina or work in Lahaina. So whatever the fellow David's point is, it's moot. Living 10 minutes from work, we're less than the traffic on the poly. We need this. Our children need this. Please take it into consideration. It will keep us here. I was considering moving to Oahu, and this project's what's keeping me here. Our keiki need it. We live in this community. We are not transplants. We live here. We are part of this community, and we keep renting. We get priced out of everything. Please support this project. Mahalo.
Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next testifier is David Kelso. He'll be followed by Rizlin Raboy.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Dave Kelso. I've lived here with my wife 3 years. We love it here. This is our retirement, and we are pretty much gone into the agricultural viewpoint. That's why we bought 5 acres, so we could do ag in this area. To do ag on a half-acre lot, which I've lived on before, you might sustain yourself, but you're not going to sustain the public. You get 5 acres, you have something that you can produce, and you can help the area. So I believe by cutting down this property, which is ag property, all you're doing is the detriment of the ag system. As Governor Aggie said, let's try to take care of ourselves, as one of the gentlemen just said. Another point I have is the traffic, as we all know, is terrible. In Laniapoco area, Michaela Plantation Phase 2, which I'm in, there's only development of about 27 to 30% of the land at this time. So if you take what we have up there now and you triple that, that's how many more homes, people, cars are going to be on the road without this development, just what's there right now. So it's a huge concern. The bypass and the road system that they're putting in now, we're still in the same predicament trying to get out of there. My background is that I was in the fire service for 37 years in San Diego County, retired. I've seen a lot of disasters in my lifetime pertaining to getting out of the way of fires. People have a tendency to kind of panic when obviously they feel that their life's at stake. And having the access that we have right now to get out of there is not good. And now you put in another, triple just what we have. You're coming into a major problem. So that is my main concern. And one more point, is the county prepared to finance and to hire more safety personnel? Because you start putting these houses in, you're going to need more personnel. You're possibly going to need a fire station down in that location for response time, because there is a situation you need response time nationally. So, and I don't think we're covering the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Rislyn Raboy. She'll be followed by James Whitehead.
Hi, my name is Rislyn Raboy, and I currently live on West Maui for 15 years, and I support this project because right now I'm a single mother, and my son is growing up, and we share a bedroom, just like the other mom earlier, and it'd be really nice to have a bigger place, but to have a 2-bedroom is really expensive, and I can't afford that, so please consider this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the next testifier is James Whitehead. He will be followed by Juna Nakoa.
Good afternoon. My name is James Whitehead. I'm a resident of Lahaina my whole life, Lahaina Luna alum. I'm testifying on behalf of myself, and although I may not qualify to be in the affordable housing, I'm testifying on behalf of my kids, my cousins, my family, friends that may, so that they could have the opportunity to have their life in West Maui versus moving away like I've had a lot of classmates and friends do, just because it's a lot cheaper. And talking with Greg, he had some good points about this process and his affordable housing. And I've known Greg for a few years. Just having faith that he'll follow through with what he's making promises on, and that it'll benefit the West Side. Thank you. Oh, actually, I have one more point to make since I got some time. Everybody's talking about access, fire escape. I know all of that is important. We as a West Maui community know things are tight everywhere. Congestion is tight in a lot of the housing, especially up in Lahaina Luna where I now live. We had one access point in and out until just recently with the bypass. And we survived it for as long as I can remember. So I know safety is a huge concern. I'm not saying to go around that, but look at how every other neighborhood is operated in the generations before us. Thank you.
Any clarification needed from the testifier? See none. Thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Junior Nakoa. He will be followed by Kimberly Dragon.
How's it, Junior Nakoa? This is my daughter's Kiana and Kapua. So when I talk about this, stay in Arizona. She came back Sunday. I like when she come back, graduate, she get on house in Lahaina. Okay, that's one of the biggest things that I'm working on. If you guys can do me a big favor, and turn around and look at all the guys that say stand up Hawaiians, the one that came for the kai for, think about that we should be supporting this kind of project. These guys all no like talk, so kind of gonna be talking for them because you imagine 3 minutes, that's a whole lot of you guys' time, so kind of making them all together. So you guys not here till 9 o'clock tonight, but plus they talk funny kind, but talking about this project now, the price is $250,000 for a one-bedroom house in Lahaina. You know what I mean? And you're never going to get that anywhere in Hawaii. And it's on a half-acre lot. Okay? And that's a start for somebody, for a family. You know what I mean? We're going to make this developer, you know what I mean? We're going to hold him to his word. I know where he lives. I know his number. You know what I mean? And all these consultants that come here, but hold them accountable. You know what I mean? Hey, this is an opportunity for us to get this thing done. But at the same time, hold him accountable. I wait. You know what I mean? This project is one unique one too. You know how this the brother talk about the 2-1-H and it's a fast track and all that kind of stuff? Yes, it is. But this is the first project that they're going to build affordable homes first before they even build any of the marketplace homes. That never happens. Everybody, the housing department guys, you guys know the county council, the mayor, if you can hear me, same thing. They know that none of the affordable projects get built first. Okay? All the hotels on Kaanapali, they promised they were going to build workforce housing. But what they do, they build the hotels and then they say they can't afford to build affordable housing. So we stuck with no more houses because we never hold them accountable for building affordable houses first. Okay, so when I talk to this brother, the developer, I tell him, make sure you build affordable homes first for the local people if you really want to make this for the local people. And he promised me that. So again, I'm going to hold him accountable for that. And you guys better hold him too. Just get more power. But you're planning, this is like one blueprint project for future projects, future developers. Because I've been doing this for 18 years when she was in my ex-girlfriend's stomach. And you guys always say the thing not going to work, but this is one way going to work. 18 years, and I still say we still are fighting for that. This is the one way we can make it work, by making it affordable first and building this marketplace. So we got to work together. We always talk about this private community entity working together. This is the one. Private and the county working together for make it work for all us guys over here. You know what I mean? So let's try to take advantages. And if the thing works, bro, make plenty like this. You know what I mean? That way we can get the homes first. You know what I mean? So, yeah, in behalf of my daughters and in behalf of everybody, make this project happen, please.
All right, members of the audience, please, no clapping. There's a lot of people over here that are nervous, and we don't want them being worried about is somebody going to clap or boo for them. So we appreciate your coming, but please restrain yourselves. Mr. Saldana.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The next testifier is Kimberly Gergon. She will be followed by Katie Kretzinger.
Hi, Kimberly Gergoni. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I want to thank all the Laniapoko owners. Thank you. Thanks for coming down here and undermining the state, the county. Thanks for bringing attention to what you think is your water rights. We all share the water. Thanks for, drawing question to issues that need to be resolved. Because there needs to be adequate support of the proposed Makila Kai project, I'm standing here today. It's no surprise that Makila Kai will further help benefit and enhance the community for all the stated reasons. The design of Makila Kai focuses on growth and agriculture. Looking at a brand new development up at Laniapoko.
Excuse me, please address the chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Looking at a brand new development from Laniapoko, all they'll see is just rooftops on half-acre lots. It pays attention to sustainability, like others have spoken, and with the combining of agriculture and the plantation-style floor plan, Makila Kai not only meets, but it exceeds other developer designs. To further go on, I, along with everyone else, we support the project because of the open space and, again, the single-story floor plan. But the importance here is about being close to schools, to work, to helping the community with providing. And these same people that complained about agriculture, well, now we're just left with hospitality. And this hospitality, it has to service West Maui. And I have every faith in the state and the county that they will come across the objections with fire safety and water and really go above and beyond. And we're excited to have this Makila Kai, and we look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? See none. Thank you very much. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Katie Kretzinger, followed by George Brown.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Katie Kretzinger. I'm really nervous talking in front of people, so I apologize if I stutter. I have been a captain and crew living on the west side, working on boats for the last 8 years. So to me, this project is extremely exciting because looking at the development and how they choose to develop it and having the half-acre lots, that's a lot better option than a lot of the other projects that have come through the pipeline. And seeing the small lots, as someone mentioned, the concrete jungle, this is kind of an alternative to that. It honors the green space of the west side. It honors local families that are trying to have an actual plot, an actual space, an actual amount of land to raise their kids on. So I don't have kids yet, but I would love to have a family here. And to be able to have that option, to be able to know that that is available to me would be wonderful. So whether I myself personally get this or another family here, I think that would be a great choice. And I think it's pretty well known that affordable housing is extremely difficult to come by. Rent, as people mentioned, or even pricing people out of living here, especially people that contribute and give back to the community. So to be able to offer something to people that is a real opportunity, that's a real house, not just something that's crammed together, not just a condo, something that is something proud, or something that kids can be proud to grow up in, is a pretty cool opportunity in my opinion. So, sorry for shaking. I literally hate people staring at me, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Mr. Saldana.
The next testifier, Mr. Chair, is George Brown. He'll be followed by Martin Cooper.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, aloha. I'm a native Hawaiian also, like a bunch of those people up in the corner. I grew up on Oahu, and I came to Maui to work for Pioneer Mill in 1971. I'd like to clarify some things that the PBR Hawaii has stated in their report. Number one, they said that this area was used for cattle. It was not. It was always for cane. And in 1971, I was a Water Luna irrigation supervisor for you people who don't know about the plantation. It was some of the best lands that we had. So I wanted to clarify that. Another troubling inconsistency is that in the PBR Makilakai final application workforce housing, in paragraph I, it says an environmental assessment or environmental impact statement is not required for Makilakai to proceed. At the same time, it wasn't quite the same time, it was just a couple years before that. In 2015, the same company, PBR, said in their what they prepared for the state, document number A15-799, presented to the State Land Use Commission, September 11th, 2015. It concluded that EIS was necessary. So I'm kind of confused. I would like to see more affordable housing on West Maui. And you yourself, sir, have, in a recent article, talked about a number of them. And I think that, if my count is correct, 900 or 1,000 units. There is another piece of land that the state owns right now, right in Lahaina itself, about 500 acres that the state owns that could also be affordable housing. And that'll be 1,200 or 1,400 units. So as we're looking at these different projects, let's be cognizant that there is a lot of land that if we could all get together here on Maui, go to the state and say, let us use that land, let us do that. Then all these people that need housing here can get that housing, the ones that you talked about and these others. So I would like to see that. I would like to see an EIS done because it is important to preserve our agricultural lands. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Martin Cooper, who will be followed by Doug Wright.
Aloha, chairs, members. My name is Martin Cooper. I'm a licensed architect here in the state of Hawaii. I'm also a licensed contractor in the state of Hawaii. I lived on Oahu for 19 years before moving here 26 years ago. My design experience includes a number of affordable Maui projects. I designed the buildings for Yale Parkside. I designed the houses for every subdivision that Jesse Spencer and his family built. My firm is currently inspecting the construction of 25 affordable units, which we designed for Peter Martin in Kahoma. I am also a few months away from obtaining a final plat map approval for a small subdivision in Pukalani. In that subdivision, my brother and I will be building the affordable component. I have known Greg Brown for almost 16 years. I have basically designed every structure that Mr. Brown has built on Maui. We all know that the proposed affordable units are needed in Lahaina. Greg has the skill, the knowledge, and the financial ability to get this done. I respectfully ask that you support this project.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Doug Wright, who will be followed by Gordon Firestein.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Doug Wright. I'm an attorney in town, and I've been asked by the neighboring Maquila Plantation Homeowners Association to assist in this review of the project. Before we get started, I just would like to say, as you know, 700-page application, about a week to review it, and 3 minutes to comment. I requested additional time to receive a copy of this application, and the applicant denied a courtesy copy to review the application, even though it's already on a shortened time frame. It took about an extra week to get it, so we've lost that time. Maybe that's the intention to prejudice a meaningful review of this application. There's other misstatements that are out there as well that just set the record straight. Emails that have gone out saying that the Department of Housing has already recommended approval to the council for this. That's not true. They don't make a recommendation, as you know. Similarly, there's been community input. There's been a claim that there's been lots of community input sought. That has not been the case. In fact, one of the community meetings for the Maquila Plantation HOA, it turns out there was no support. Not one person spoke up at the meeting for in support of this project. At least not one person that lived in the association. There was one person who did stand up and speak and voice support for it, and then suddenly left the meeting, as it turns out. That person was not within the association. That was a plant, as it turns out, to sway opinion. Moving on to some of the more substantive issues. We've heard testimony from people who have been brave, and I'm nervous myself right now, to come here and present their personal story. I've seen probably 25 to 30 people. Excuse me? I've heard 25 to 30 people who have stood up to be recognized for affordable housing. This project is 80 acres, and it will build or offer no more than 8 homes to those earning less than 100% of the median income. Okay, this is agricultural land. The person bought the property, the applicant bought the property knowing it's agricultural land. You know, the zoning says you could build 2 acres, you can build a home. That's 40 homes that could be built. And we want to talk about affordable housing. He purchased it for $4 million, 80 acres. That comes to $100,000 for 2 acres of land. We've heard a testifier say that he could build a home for $100,000. We've heard someone testify that he'll sell it for $250,000. Even selling the least expensive homes, the applicant will still be making a profit on this. People want affordable housing. People want agriculture. Why are we competing with each other? This is not a project that has to pit one against the other. Instead, put together a project that is responsible, has an adequate environmental review, and it provides for agriculture. We've heard testimony about open space along the bypass, the single biggest part of this green belt. And it's called green belt because it's colored green along the highway. This is a picture of the area, as of yesterday, what looks like along the bypass. And I think that the council should clarify open space. Is this what the public and yourselves request or demand for open space? It's a misnomer, and this project needs to be reviewed. I urge you to deny the application and send it through a normal review process in accordance with the zoning as it exists. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier will be Gordon Firestein. He'll be followed by Doris Lang.
Aloha, committee members. My name is Gordon Firestein. My wife and I live in Laniapoko, and we are testifying today in opposition to the Maquila Kai proposal. Like everyone else, we know we need more workforce housing on the west side. If this proposal were only about workforce housing, in an ideal world, in an ideal place, there'd be no argument against it. But this place for this proposal is far from ideal. When looked at not in isolation, but in the context of the setting and the situation, one can only conclude that it's just wrong. This proposal is only the first of several to come soon to develop the entire 271-acre swath between the bypass and Haniu Street from Kaiheliku to Hokiokio. It should not be looked at in isolation. It's proposed for ag land, We ought not to be building dense housing, whether workforce or not, on our limited supply of ag land in West Maui. West Maui is effectively a cul-de-sac, and like all of Maui, we ought to be doing everything we can to promote growing our own food to improve our food security. We are isolated. This proposal should not be looked at in isolation. It will create more traffic, not only for the neighborhood, but for all of West Maui. We all know how bad the traffic is already, how little is being done to alleviate that, and how long we'll have to wait for a solution. We are isolated in West Maui, and this proposal should not be looked at in isolation. It will increase the demand and usage for water without doing anything to improve the supply. A new well does not increase supply. It's only one more straw in the same aquifer we all depend on. Our water supply is limited and isolated from the rest of the island. This proposal should not be looked at in isolation. This area is extremely vulnerable to wildfire. As co-chair of the Firewise Committee in Laniapoko, the only Firewise neighborhood in West Maui, we are extremely concerned about how this area will be able to evacuate safely under current conditions. We have one road in and one road out, Kaiheleku. This proposal does not add another evacuation route. It does add more people and more cars that will need to use the existing route. If the highway is blocked when the next big fire happens, not an unusual occurrence, our West Side firefighters will be isolated. This proposal should not be looked at in isolation. Please look at the big picture. Direct affordable housing to more appropriate sites. Do not approve this proposal.
Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier will be Doris Lang. Should be followed by Thomas Tingle.
Good afternoon. I want to state first that I'm not against affordable housing at all. But I'm against this project for the following reasons. Traffic. Makila Kai residents will join up with Laniapoko residents on the ingress-egress route to the bypass. Adding 100+ more cars will cause serious traffic congestion, all funneling onto our 2-lane road, Kaiheleku. Fire. I'm one of the members of the Firewise Committee for Laniapoko. At this time, we only have one exit for evacuation, and that is on Kaiheleku. Adding more residents has a high probability of fatalities and injuries due to gridlock conditions if we cannot escape. Gridlock will inhibit the emergency response teams to come into the area to control the fire, protect the residents, and putting them at unnecessary risks. Water. Show me the water law needs to be implemented before the project goes forward. This law was designed for all new developments, large or small, without exceptions. Makila Kai owners. What is to stop Makila Kai owners for doing illegal vacation rentals? They can make a lot of money. If the county only allowed a limited amount of legal vacation rentals and stopped the illegal ones, there would be housing for long-term renters. We have a shortage of housing on the west side because of the lack of enforcement from the county. Affordable housing. There are 570 at 3 different developments being built right now in Lahaina. They're close to shopping areas, schools, work, medical. Residents will have access to public transportation, walking, and riding bikes. Makila Kai is 2 miles from Lahaina. Before approving, the county should see the impact of the much larger affordable housing projects that are being built now. Ag land. Makila Kai is violating the ag rules by requesting a change in the zoning. We're farmers in Laniapoko. When we purchased our land, we are told that the entire hillside is ag zoned. The developer wants to change the zoning for himself and future projects neighboring him. He should not be allowed any exemptions. The land was tested and rated to be Class B fertile land by the state. Makila Kai should have to follow all of the requirements written in the planning and building rules. There should be no exemptions granted, and They should not be able to fast-track this through. The county has a responsibility to current Laniapoco residents and bear liabilities if things go awry. Makila Kai project has many holes, many problems, and they need to be addressed before it goes forward. Please reject this proposal until solutions are addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could you repeat your name again? Doris?
Lang, L-A-N-G.
And you're a resident of Laniapoco?
Yes, I am.
And you farm?
We are farmers on 2 acres.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The next testifier is Thomas Tingle. He'll be followed by Vera Saradanovic.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Thomas Tingle, and I just do believe that we do need a lot more affordable housing over there. I have to drive, 2 hours. I live in Kihei. I got 3 kids, so there's five of us in the home, and you just can't afford anything over there, and everybody up Laniapoco wants to shut the door behind them, but everybody else has these dreams of, having that view too and doing their ag and stuff like that, and it's really important because, everybody I ever talked to, you just can't afford to live in Lahaina. It's just ridiculous. Everybody's having to go to the other side of the island. You want to alleviate that traffic? Have more affordable housing over there. And the infrastructure's in place, that belt line is going to be finished, It's all going to work out. But we just really need a whole lot more of it, so I support it. I don't really have much else to say.
Thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Vera Sadanovic.
Hi, my name is Vera Sredanovic. I live in Laniapoco, and my main concern is environment. As you all guys know, there was a prior proposal for Makila Rural, which was supposed to have septic processing facility for that type of development, which was actually supposed to be smaller than this current one, plus the new one that's in the planning stages, which you're going to find out about pretty soon. So all of these septic tanks so close to the ocean are eventually going to leach into our oceans and endanger our coral reefs, and as a result endanger our tourism industry, because everybody comes here because this is a beautiful island, and you guys did such a wonderful job in preserving that diversity where you have beautiful green areas, you have agriculturally zoned lands, which have much smaller number density of occupants on it and less structures. So all of that gives the charm to Maui, and I'm really concerned about all of that being spoiled and just looking in a short term, like, yes, we need affordable housing. But as George outlined, there's much better places for that affordable housing without any issues of access road, evacuation roads. Traffic. Kaiheleku is a disaster, and it's going to be even bigger disaster once you have a bypass access to it, because now all the people going to the Laniapoco beach, which by the way is used by entire Maui, trying to learn to surf. So we are impacting a lot more, but by letting this go, because it creates a precedent, which then can be followed, and the agricultural land being taken away from the future generations, and endangering our species, our nenes, our coral reefs. I mean, we own this to the entire world to preserve this beauty. So the only other point I'd say, this seems like affordable housing, but I don't understand how it's affordable when people have to pay association fees to live there. And they have to have a car, they have to drive to the school, they can't walk there. It's just not planned well. This is not the right place for it. And that's all I have to say. Any questions?
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Carl Godson. He will be followed by Zenobia Lankdawala.
Hi, I'm Carl Gadsden, testifying upon myself. I've spent years working for a contractor in West Maui, building custom homes. Many of them are just meant for people using them as vacation homes. Meanwhile, like many people, my family and I can't afford a home of our own. Makila Kai would give families that opportunity to do just that. You know, most of the houses here on Maui are on lots so small, it's hard to do anything with. Half-acre lots are an ideal size, like others have said, planting gardens and the ability to live more self-sufficiently. Along with the half-acre lots, neighborhood park, loop trail, make Makila Kai an ideal neighborhood for working-class families. That's it.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Zenobia Lakdawala. They'll be followed by Tiari Lawrence. Zenobia Lakdawala. Okay, moving on. Next will be Tiari Lawrence. Tiari Lawrence? Okay.
Aloha Chair, aloha council members. My name is Tiari Lawrence. I just want to say I fiercely support the concept of workforce housing, and I'm very acutely aware that we as a community need more places to live. However, I just wanted to bring up some concerns in this project, specifics especially. Specifically, the 201H process appears to allow the limiting of public input and the standard processes of government oversight meant to affirm public safety and future community considerations. I want to trust that our local government has put in a strong approval process in order to prevent hasty estimates from becoming the basis for massive development decisions. For example, one important misleading selling point is that these homes will be specifically for the local families of West Maui, and I've had many people assume that. The truth is that the 201H process specifically prohibits this. The project cannot designate homes in any way. This means that every home could be purchased by people from another island or another part of this island. There is zero guarantee that even one person from West Maui will end up being qualified for these homes because of the lottery process. As a community, we need to make sure we are prudent, open, honest, and complete our due diligence. This includes water availability. I say water availability because the Commission of Water Resource Management is currently setting their in-stream flow standards for Kanaha, Kauaula, Kahoma, and I think even as far as Honoko'ai. That is going to take another year, and these in-stream flow standards are going to be very critical for water use, future water use in West Maui. The EIS needs to be done in sensitive cultural and environmental areas. I feel like Makila is a very sensitive area, especially because of the nearshore environment and because of the Kuleana ohana that still live and reside in Kauaula Valley. IFS must be completed before a choice can be made. Traffic mitigation. And I would like to see a cultural assessment done as well. It is the fiduciary duty of this body to do what is best for the people. And so I'm looking at the exemptions, and exemptions such as these are what the taxpayers will now be shouldering. Some of the issues I have with the exemptions, like what exists in this extensive list, should not be taken lightly. Somebody pays in the end for everything. This developer does not, whether it be the new low-income homeowner, the taxpayers, or the county. And I'm referring to some like the refuse disposal. They wouldn't have county service. It would fall onto a private company. So that's some of the issues. Also, they're asking for an exemption for no bicycle and pedestrian improvements, and that's not in line with the West Maui Community Plan. And I thought that moving forward, the county was committed to creating more walkable communities. Also, as far as they're asking an exemption for no park dedication, instead a greenway, and I would like to know if the park has an agreement with them completing this greenway. Also, in closing, this issue is very important to a lot of the families in West Maui, and unfortunately, yesterday, a lot of them didn't even know about this meeting. And so I'm humbly asking that this matter be deferred so that other families that were unable to come today can have the chance to share their mana'o, because I know that they really would like the opportunity to speak. And also, in closing, I just would request that the preservation of Kuleana rights as a priority. I ask the County Council to reaffirm the state constitution and its native water rights. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier?
Chair, I have a question, and thank you for coming here, Ms. Lawrence. I appreciate your presence. I have a lot of things I support about this, and I have some questions. But one of the questions I have for you, because I know you're in tune with a lot of what's going on in West Maui, is the income required for these homes from 80% of median up to 140%. Would start at $52,518, and on the high end go up to $91,907. And so, do you feel like there are people, a lot of folks who have testified today, who would qualify in that income range?
Yeah, I think so. I think this project is it's a good project. I think Greg Brown and the people behind it did a pretty good job. I just not sure that Makila is the right place. I think before jumping the gun and passing this through, that address some of these concerns so that we're not making mistakes or lawsuits or whatnot. But yeah, to answer your question, I do believe that there is people in West Maui that can afford it. Most of the people I grew up with most likely cannot. But for those that are able to save money and have a down payment, kudos to them.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone have anything further? Thank you very much.
Mahalo.
Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier to sign up is Dave Miami. He'll be followed by Yolanda Dizan. Dave Miami. Second call. Okay. Next testifier, Yolanda Dizan or Dizan? Dizun. Okay. Dizan. Thank you. And then Robert Applegate will follow.
Good afternoon. My name is Yolanda Dyson. It's the year 2017. We're back again. Same company, same developers. The affordable housing isn't the question. We all want it. I would jump on it right away if it was done right. If the EAS was done, the safety issues, and concerns approached and fixed. And I can't imagine that you would even agree to pass this through, knowing that the infrastructures are dead. Safety concerns, big issue. Water concerns, big issue. Summer is coming. We're going to have fires. One exit in, one exit out, Kaheliku. Traffic is so, well, what I'm going to say about it, everybody knows. Not even bumper to bumper sometimes, it's crawling. How do you evacuate? That is not the place for this affordable. It's the Makila Kai. There are two other projects right on that tail of Makila Kai. Total development from Kahiliku all the way out to Puamana. Bypass, these homes going to be above the bypass. Whether it's above or below, it's dangerous. There's going to be another street light on Kahiliku so that the people that live up Kalani Poku or in these affordable homes can get through. Now, we don't have to be rocket scientists to know it's not safe. Stop this project. Or else, defer it until you all can look over it again and make the right decision. Don't jump the gun because it's going to be a big mistake if this thing passes. We need that. You are the leaders. We look to you guys for safety, that you know better, that you know how to take care of the community. That's your job, your judiciary. Just do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Robert Applegate. He will be followed by Albert Perez.
Hi, my name is Robert Applegate, and I'm here representing myself. And quite possibly in the future, if you pass this, everybody in the room who stood up, because everybody who is going to be buying this workforce housing and who will be going out on the highway at Kaiheliku is never going to get to work again. The light is 4.5 minutes on the red. It's 30 seconds on the green. You might think you're going to make it, but then a family is dragging their boogie boards and whatever across the street as you want to make a left turn, and there's a truck in front of you. You know the light turns red again, you're going nowhere, right? So I don't know how long it's going to take people to get to work. I guess if they all work in Lahaina and can make a right turn, they may make it. Mostly I'm here because in 2008, I bought a Greg Brown house. And I bought Greg's personal house. So you'd think, man, I got a great home. A developer always builds a great home for himself. One for himself, I would think. Didn't turn out that way. Over the first couple of years, I begged Greg to do so many things. My wife arrived in Hawaii before I did. Not only would he not do anything for her, including a garage door opener, but he essentially threatened her, which is on record at the police department. And I have to just say that my thing against Fast Track here is simply this. I bought one of the expensive homes in Makila, okay? I bought his home. He bought a home right after that, or built a home in Kapalua for himself that no longer exists. But anyway, what's going to make everybody here think that he's going to build this workforce housing without cutting corners and them having problems for years to come? And maybe they can't do what I did. 2 years into it, I sued him, and I hung on for 5 years before we finally settled this thing. But most people I know can't do that. So I say, I don't care about workforce housing. I think people need housing. And if you want to do something with all these damn developers, make them build some big shelter for the homeless, so people at least can get out of the damn rain. Workforce housing is important, but unless you're going to put in 1 or 2 more signals, then I think that you can't possibly fast track this. And the other thing I would ask is this publicly. If you're going to approve this project, you have to have special circumstances of inspection on these homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next testifier is Albert Perez. He'll be followed by Cassandra Hastu.
Aloha, Chair. Aloha, Council members. I'm Albert Perez, Maui tomorrow, and I am testifying on the same project, obviously. I'd like you to refer to the last page of my testimony. I put a map in that I was given when I went to a public presentation on the first of these 3 segmented 201H projects. Is this working? Thank you. So just basically, it seems that these developers have gone to great lengths to maximize the amount of land that they can develop with as little room as possible, as little review as possible by going through the 201H project. And even though they are not up for this review, we have the other developers here in the room watching what you're doing today. So I'm concerned that we're going to be setting a precedent of segmentation. Polanui Gardens, Makila Kai, and Makila Rural East, only one of these is before you today. And there's at least one more 201H project being proposed at Oluwalu that I'm aware of. By segmenting these for separate review, the apparent impacts for each individual project are minimized. You have a 45-day deadline to make a decision, but that doesn't mean that you have to wait, that you have to decide today or within that 45 days. I urge you to actually disapprove this project until all three of those come before you. And then you can work with the developer. Now that the community knows what they're proposing, we can work on it. You know, we are definitely in support of affordable housing, but this fast-track process is a problem. I would also urge you, as far as some detailed comments, there's a difference between units and lots. So the affordable homes, they talk about units, and they're going to be building dwellings. The lots on the market side, unless there's a condition that limits the actual number of dwellings that can be built, you may have possibility. I mean, they've said they're not going to do a HANA, but that should be a condition. Farm dwellings should be assumed. Also, the 24 market rate lots on the 64.9 acres exceeds the number that would be allowed by the sliding scale of our ag subdivision ordinance that was specifically adopted to prevent cutting up ag land into 2-acre lots. So this will allow the developer to go even smaller. We've heard about ingress and egress. This is a recipe for disaster. If the council approves this, you should definitely address this roadway inadequacy for the safety of residents and firefighters as well. And I would say that housing built in this location will add to traffic going north to our workplace, Lahaina Ka'anapali. And I'll just finish up. I would encourage infill in Lahaina, and I would say that splitting up the project into 3 segments does not reduce the environmental impacts. By doing it this way, there will be more than the maximum 50 septic systems allowed by the Department of Health. Instead of a wastewater treatment plant, this will increase impacts on water quality. I urge you to consider these 3 projects together instead of encouraging segmentation by allowing it this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the next testifier is Cassandra Hastu. She will be followed by Charlie Palakiko. Mr. Palakiko is the last individual signed up in the chamber to testify.
Aloha, council members. Thank you for giving me this opportunity today. I am not speaking, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but I'm not speaking legally, I'm speaking from the heart. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my family, my fiance, and now my 14-month-old daughter. My fiance was born here on Maui, so was his father, and his father before him was born in Molokai. I'd just like to say that the housing here on West Maui is greatly unaffordable, and our current apartment, our rent again is being raised, and we have talked over and over about trying to keep raising our daughter here where he was raised, but that might not be a possibility. We don't want to move to the mainland, but if we can't afford to stay, that might happen. I'd also like to say that I have been to recently a King Kamehameha High School graduation, and it was great to see the youth learn the language, learn the culture, learn the dances, and I would really love to raise my daughter that way. We are hardworking young parents on the West Side. I was really happy to come here. I learned a lot that I didn't know before about the concerns that the other community members have. The fire I knew about, it is definitely a concern. And the traffic, yes, it's bad. Yes, it seems unbearable, but it's not. There is traffic on the island, and I think that we should get used to it. It's not going to go away. We are going to increase it, yes, but such is life. I'm really happy that we can now, we put a lot of work into this. I went to do the course that is required by all applicants, so I learned a lot about being a first-time home buyer, and I got approved for a loan, which I didn't know I could be approved, but I am, so that's also great. And I just like to thank the Makilikai community for that. I hope that they are addressing all the concerns and that any of the people who do get picked for this lottery whether this community or the next ones to come, that they appreciate that opportunity and do not take advantage of it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier? Seeing none, Mr. Saldana.
Mr. Chair, the last testifier currently signed up in the chamber is Charlie Palakiko.
If there's anybody else wishes to give testimony, please sign up at the desk.
Aloha. My name is Charlie Palakiko. I'm a resident of Kauaula Valley. I've been living there on this land since I was 12 years old. I'm now 43. We started 2 little kalo patches that was fed by a hose connected to an 1.5-inch pipe that we installed for our homes there when there was no water in the stream. Years later, I started to rebuild the old lo'is and also cleaned and restored the awai to feed the kalo patches. At the time, West Maui Land Company was dumping water from a Kauaula reservoir that ended up in the stream right at the intake of this awai that I used to start my patches. This intake contained invasive species such as clams and crayfish that destroyed the banks of the kalo patches. Because of this, we negotiated with Peter Martin for clean water from the stream. We eventually came to an agreement through mediation, so he started dumping water at the dam with a 6-inch pipe. This 6-inch pipe was not enough water, so we created a diversion at the dam to deliver more water. This worked for about a year or so until they destroyed it and started dumping water about 1.5 miles down below the stream through a flume because of loss of water through saturation in the stream. This left 1.5 miles of gap or river that has been without water ever since. They used a 6-inch pipe initially and recently cut back to a 4-inch pipe, giving us less water. These past few years have been getting even worse with the increasing development, at times causing us to go without water for up to a week, disturbing the growth of the kalo and even losing crops of the kalo from rot. Since the rivers began to run, there's now native stream life thriving in it, such as oopu and opai. Oh, I just lost it, sorry. Where am I gotta turn them back on. Okay. Since the river began to run, there's now native stream in the life thriving such as oopu and opai. This life needs water connectively from Mauka to Makai to survive. Before any more development continues, these matters must be settled concerning water for stream life and for the kalo. Until that happens, I highly recommend that this project is denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarification needed from the testifier?
Sure.
Ms. Cochran.
Thank you. Aloha, Charlie. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming this way. And so currently, water is, you have water accommodating what you need in the lo'is at this time.
We do have water, but it's not steady. To grow kalo, you need steady water. The water got to be steady. Through the years, it's just been getting worse. When they run low on their half, they're giving us just a hair of what's in the stream. When they run low, they even take what they're giving us to rebuild their reservoir and build their amount of water so that, and then when they have it, then they'll give back our water. And they're just giving us just a tab of what's in the stream. So already there's big concerns with the stream. They have water restrictions for Launiopoko. And this goes back years back already, years. And because of this development, I don't know how it's gonna even get better. So these matters, I say, needs to be figured out before we even move on or even talk about development.
Right. No, and thank you. And mahalo
right.
for being here. No, thanks for sharing. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Hannah, do you have anybody waiting to give testimony?
The Hana office has no one waiting to testify, Chair.
Thank you. Molokai, do you have anybody waiting to give testimony?
There's no one here on Molokai waiting to testify.
Thank you. Lanai, do you have anybody waiting to give testimony?
There is no one waiting to testify on Lanai.
Thank you. Members, no one else has signed up to give testimony in the chamber, and there's no testimony at the sites. With no objection, I will close public testimony.
No objection.
Public testimony is now closed. Members, I am going to take our recess, and to all of you and to the public, There will not be time to get into decision-making today. We will be reviewing all of the points that were brought up by testifiers and all the concerns that the members have. But there won't be time because I already can see where we're going to have to redraft the original bill. So we will go as far as we can and do what we can addressing these concerns today, but we will not be making, I will not be proposing to pass this out. Hearing that, we'll take a 10-minute break, recess, until 3:10. We stand in recess. This non-use committee is called back to order. The committee is in receipt of correspondence dated May 8, 2017 from the Director of Housing and Human Concerns transmitting the following. An application for the development of a proposed Makila Kai LLC project in Lahaina, Maui, Hawaii, pursuant to Section 21H38 Hawaii Revised Statutes. The proposed project would provide 25 residential workforce housing units on lots approximately 1/2 acre in size for individuals and families with annual incomes from 80% to 140% of Maui's median income. The market rate agricultural lots ranging from approximately 1.5 acres to slightly less than 2 acres in size on approximately 79.5 acres of land identified for real property tax purposes as tax map key parenthesis 2 4-7-013 semicolon 003 004 and purposes as tax map keys 2 4-7-013 semicolon 003 and 004 and 005 in the area of Laniapoko, West Maui, Moka of the Honopilani Highway, and the Lahaina Bass Highway Corridor, and propose resolutions to approve the project with modifications or disapprove the project. Remember, Section 218 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes required that the Council approve with modifications or disapprove the project by June 22nd, 2017, or the project will be deemed approved as is. 3 proposed resolutions have been posted for your consideration to allow for these options. HRS Section 201H38 authorizes the Council to grant exemptions for statutes, ordinances, charter provisions, and rules of governmental agencies relating to planning, zoning, and construction standards for the subdivisions, development, and improvement of land and construction of units therein. As part of the community's discussion on the proposed project, the committee is being asked to consider requests for such exemptions. These requested exemptions are contained in Exhibit A to the proposed resolutions approving the project or approving a project with modifications. So, please consider not only the anticipated benefits and impacts of the proposed units, but also the requirements of the committee is being asked to forego to allow the project to proceed. Because it is unusual, I also wish to note that the developer has not requested an exemption under Chapter 21H from the requirement of a state district boundary amendment. However, according to the proposed resolutions, the developer is seeking certain exemptions from the application and procedural requirements of the proposed district boundary amendment. The proposed district boundary amendment bill has been transmitted separately to the Council and is on Friday's Council meeting agenda. We have been advised by the Department of the Corporation Council that the committee can review the 21H application for the Maukakai project pending receipt of the proposed district boundary amendment bill for consideration. Your chair anticipates again scheduling this 21H application along with the proposed district boundary amendment bill on May 31st, 2017 for further consideration. I would like to draw the members' attention to the documents I have distributed to you today, which were a part of the transmittal to the committee from Mr. Thomas Welch dated May 12th, 2017. I thought it would be easier for the members to have these documents available for easier reference. They are the proposed revisions to the exemptions attached as an exhibit to the proposed resolutions to approve the project or approve the project with modifications, as well as proposed modifications offered by the developer. Now, members, I would ask that Mr. Tom Chanel of PBR Hawaii Associates provide the committee with a presentation on the proposed project. Mr. Chanel, please also advise the committee of the names and the capacities of the representatives you have with you today. Once the presentation is over, we will proceed. Mr. Chanel.
Good afternoon, Chair Carroll, council members. Thank you for taking time to listen to our thoughts and ideas from Makila Kai. My name is Tom Schnell. I'm with a planning firm called PBR Hawaii, and I've been working with Makila Kai, specifically Greg Brown, on this project for a little bit actually about a year. And I wanted to present our plans. I have some notes. The chair has asked us to keep our presentation to 5 minutes. I will try to abide by that. I have a lot of information. As been mentioned before, we do have an extensive document that you've all received, so there is a lot of information. I expect that your questions will bring out additional details, but I'm going to give a project overview at this point. So with me today, as I mentioned, is Greg Brown. He represents Makila Kai LLC. He's the landowner and developer, or Makila Kai LLC is. I mentioned PBR Hawaii. It's Makila Kai LLC's planning consulting firm. That's me. We have our legal representative here, Tom Welch from Welch & Mancini. We also have our traffic engineer here, Juanita Wolfgang. We have Darren Unamori, who's our civil engineer from Warren S. Unamori Engineering. And we have Tom Nance, who's our water resources consultant. There were other project members at our team, and we can bring them back at next meeting if we need to, but we wanted to keep it to a minimum. So first, I'd like to just have Greg make some introductory remarks, let you know who Greg Brown is and what his company does, and then I'll take it over for the details.
Hello, council members. My name is Greg Brown. I am the developer of Makila Kai. My company is Brown Development. I'm a 30-year resident of Hawaii. I've been building in this area primarily for the past 15 years. I've built approximately 80 homes in this area. And what I have been doing is building one home and one cottage on each lot, CPRing them, and then selling them off individually for millions of dollars. And I came across these 3 lots a year ago, and they total about 79.5 acres. And my first intentions were, again, to build 3 really nice homes and 3 cottages and CPR it and sell them all off. And I then learned about the workforce housing projects that are processed under the 201H guidelines. And so I thought I would try something new. So I reached out to the community, and I saw that there was a huge need, and I quickly gained a lot of support. And so we've been doing this for the last year, and we've submitted our application to you. And I want to let you know that I am a contractor. I don't need a contractor. So if this does get approved, I will get this built. I have my own heavy equipment. I build my own roads. I have my own civil crew in this neighborhood. I also have all my own tools and equipment to do all the vertical construction, employ about 25 guys who are currently working in the neighborhood. And I also have current financing in place. So I want to thank you all for your consideration, and I'll turn it back over to Tom. Thank you.
Okay, some quick notes about the project. Makila Kai. Makila Kai will provide 25 workforce housing homes in Laniopoko. The project is consistent with the purpose and intent of Chapter 201H, Hawaii Revised Statutes. And 201H allows for exemptions from certain statutes, ordinances, charter provisions, rules relating to planning, zoning, and development, provided that there's no, it meets the requirements for health and safety. We're also in conformance with Chapter 2.96, which is the county's workforce housing ordinance. The location of Makila Kai. So when Greg was talking about 3 lots, there are 3 large lots here. They're a little bit over 25 acres. They total 79.5 acres. Lahaina starts over here. Puamana is down in this area. Laniapoko Beach Park is here, and this is Kaihele Ku that connects at Laniapoko Beach Park. There is a traffic signal here. Access to Makila Kai will be from Kaihele Ku, and it will go up Hanu Street, and Punakea Loop is already coming down. This line right here represents the alignment of the Lahaina bypass, which is under construction at this point. I checked with DOT 2 weeks ago. They are under construction. They are scheduled for completion of the bypass in January 2018. This is some property photos. So this is at the top of the property looking Mackay. This is from about the mid-level of the property looking Mauka. This is another view looking across the property. And this is Hanu Street, and the project would be on the left side of this photo. Makila Kai is within the Maui Island Plan rural growth boundary. When I first started working with Greg, we had a meeting with the planning department at the very first preliminary stages. We were aware of the Maui Island Plan. The planning department also provided us some additional information about the Maui Island Plan that we conformed with so that we could be in greater conformance with the Maui Island Plan. I'll get into those details later, but basically we have a net residential density of greater than 1 dwelling unit per acre. Approximately 50% of the total area will be in open space, and there will be a 500-foot setback from the bypass to the first rural home, and that's the green belt that people were talking about. It's about 22 acres in total that'll be left in open space. The West Maui Community Plan designates this area as Ag District. The West Maui Community Plan has not been updated since 1996. My understanding is that the Maui Island Plan leads and the community plans are supposed to be updated in conformance with the Maui Island Plan at a later date. I understand West Maui is scheduled after Molokai and Lanai, so it will probably be the next West Maui Community Plan update. In addition, the Maui Island Plan was adopted in 2012, and it specifies that the Maui Island Plan Directed Growth Plan will provide the framework for future community plan and zoning changes. Ahead of the community plan being amended to conform to the rural growth boundaries, one of the exemptions we are asking for is an exemption to the West Maui Community Plan. Next. The county zoning, we don't have a zoning map, but the county zoning is ag, and we will be asking for an exemption from the ag zoning standards, and we will be providing lots that will be 1.5 acres on the on the market rate units and 1/2 acre on the workforce units. I think that's all I have to say on that. The state land use district is also designated ag. When we originally put together our application, we did seek an exemption, or we were seeking an exemption to the state land use district. In conversation with the State Land Use Commission and the Office of Planning, they wrote, and they told us, and we met with them several times, that we should not be seeking an exemption, we should be seeking a district boundary amendment. So for the for the approximately 14.6 acre area where the workforce houses will be on the half-acre lots, we will be requesting a district boundary amendment from the state ag district to the state rural district. The other lots will remain in the ag district, which is allowable under the state ag district rules, which provide for a minimum of 1 acre ag lots, which is different from the county zoning of 2 acres. Quick overview of Makila Kai. 25 workforce homes, half-acre lots. Makila Kai will build all workforce homes in one phase, and they will be built before or concurrent with any market rate homes. The market rate lots will be about 1.5 to 2 acres, and the individual owners will build out those homes as they see fit, or over time. We project that the market rate homes might not be built out till 2027. This is the Makila Kai plan. So the workforce homes are here. These are half-acre lots. This red line represents the area that we're requesting the state land use district boundary amendment from ag to rural. It's about 14.6 acres. It will come before you as a separate ordinance. These are the market rate lots, and they range in size from about 1.5 acres to a little bit less than 2 acres. There's a loop trail around the entire project for walking, exercise, and recreation. There's an emergency access road. This is a cul-de-sac road, and when we met with the fire department, they recommended that we provide an emergency access road separate from this road. So we've provided that. We also have a hammerhead turnaround here, so fire trucks would be able to turn around midpoint. This area is the approximately 22-acre greenbelt area. This is the Lahaina bypass that will be coming through. It is 500 feet from the nearest workforce housing lot. Punakea Street comes down here. It's currently being constructed. It's been constructed up to here. This is not an intersection with the bypass, though. This is a state DOT underpass under the bypass so that folks up here have ocean access. Talking about amenities and features, I'll go through this quickly. I've mentioned that about 50% of the area will remain in open space. That's the green belt. There's a neighborhood park that's about 1.3 acres. There's other open spaces along the gulches, and that also includes all the setback areas along the various lots. The loop trail around the entire community. The rural-sized lots, this was really important in planning this project. We could have gone smaller lots with 201H. We could have asked for an exemption for smaller lots. When Greg talked to the neighbors in the area, the thought was that they wanted to maintain the rural character. This is what we gathered, and that's why we went with half-acre lots, and they're very large and generous for workforce housing. These lots will allow homeowners to have their own gardens and maybe some sustainability features for self-subsistence. Another thing we heard from the community was they wanted to protect their views. So the guys up Malka, they didn't want two-story homes. Greg's going to restrict all of the homes, workforce and market, to single-story. When you look down at the slope from that area, if you're up above, you'll have a clear shot above the ocean or to the ocean. Also, Greg will put restrictions for no further subdivision or CPR on the lot. So market or workforce, you will not be able to CPR your lot and sell that portion off separately. Also, we intend to put restrictions for no short-term rental homes. The affordability slides that I have are detailed, and I think most of you have them maybe on your iPads or received copies of this. Let me go through some of the points. The median sales price in the Lahaina area in 2016 was $760,000 for a single-family home. Makila Kai workforce home prices Well, we're talking about a range of different houses from 1 bedroom, 1 baths to 4 bedroom, 2 baths. The 1 bedroom, 1 bath, when we first conceptualized this, would start out at $251,000 for a 1 bedroom, 1 bath on a half-acre lot. Since then, we understand that the Housing and Human Concerns Affordable Housing Guidelines have been revised, and the prices for workforce homes have actually gone down. So, for example, a home that would have been priced at $251,000 will now be priced at $228,000. One of the unprecedented things that Greg is doing is to increase affordability for the workforce homes. He will give a gift to the buyers at escrow closing of $50,000 per home. And this came about in talking with council members and talking about homes are not really affordable, even in the affordable price ranges. So just take for an example, if a home was starting out at $251,000 with Greg's gift of $50,000, that would bring it down to $201,000. With the reduction in the prices, now we're talking about a home for 1 bedroom, 1 bath on a half-acre lot around $178,000. Now, there will be larger homes and there will be larger different income groups, but we're sticking to what's required in 2.96, which provides for a range of income groups. There's the moderate, below moderate, and above moderate groups, up to 140% of the income, median income. Some significant points that I can bring out that are small print down at the bottom, but Maquila Kai is willing to maintain the workforce home prices until all workforce homes are sold. So in Chapter 2.96, there's a provision if they don't sell in 90 days, you can bump them up to the next higher price range. We're going to waive that right. All workforce homes will be sold at workforce prices. The other thing is that if through the lottery process, we receive more applications for the below moderate and moderate income and less for the above moderate income, and there's not a demand for the above moderate income, Greg will build at the lower price ranges. Okay. Who can buy? This is a complicated issue. I summarized these points from Chapter 2.96, but in summary, you must be a Maui resident to buy a home. There are some exemptions to that, but we're not seeking any exemptions, but 2.96 does provide some provisions. But we think with 25 workforce housing homes, we're not going to have any trouble attracting 25 Maui residents to buy a workforce home. There are some other provisions about income and cannot have owned a home before. Also, the eligibility, it's done by a wait list and a lottery. So Greg has hired an independent real estate consultant to work on the wait list and also to run the lottery. So people will be able to submit their applications for the wait list. There will be a lottery held. It'll be open and fair to all. And then there are deed restrictions that I'm not going to get into, but there are some deed restrictions in 2.96 that pertaining to how long you have to live in the home, and if you sell, there's some shared appreciation points. I'm going to touch very briefly on infrastructure. We have our civil folks here that can add more, but let me just say that there's 2 internal roads. They're already connected to the existing roads, or they will be connected to the existing roads. We're going to design our road standards to the rural district standards, not ag district. I talked about the emergency access lane. I didn't talk about retention basins, but in the green belt area, there are 2 oversized retention basins, and these are sized to exceed county requirements for runoff. And Darren Unamori projects that they will improve downstream drainage conditions because they're holding back more water than already coming down. We also have low-impact development drainage features that we can get into more detail later. Water will be provided by the Loniapoco Water Company, which is a private PUC-regulated water company. In this area, there's two water systems. There's the Loniapoco Water Company, which provides potable water, and there's the Loniapoco Irrigation Company that provides irrigation water, non-potable water. When we first started planning the project, one of the big concerns we heard, and when I heard the man that spoke last, is the concern about water. At that time, we were thinking that we should not use any more stream resources or diversions, because that was the concern that we heard. We had proposed going with all potable water. In going through several processes with Public Works and others and hearing concerns, it's not a wise use of potable water to use that for irrigation. So in talking with our water engineer, Greg and the water engineer have developed an idea where Greg will drill a non-potable well on his property. This non-potable well will feed into the Loniapoco water system pipes, and it'll be metered. So we'll be able to pump water into the system, and the system will provide irrigation water back to us, but we will not be using any more water than we put into the system. And we can talk about details of that too. Some of the other things are fire hydrants spaced closer than recommended, and this came from the Maui Fire Department, and individual wastewater systems on each lot. The wastewater systems will be in compliance with all Department of Health rules. Roadways and traffic. I know traffic is a big issue, and we looked at it up front. You know, the project is going to be connected to Hanua Street and Punakea Street. These streets lead into Kaiheliku, which intersects with Honopialani Highway. It's across the street from Laniapoco Beach Park, and this is signalized. There's a backup that occurs at this intersection that many people have talked about. The bypass is under construction. It will be completed by January 2018. And the bypass is going to intersect with Kaiheliku. That will provide an additional access lane or access way on Kaiheliku. It will alleviate some of the traffic on the lower Honopialani Highway. And we have our traffic engineer here to address questions. There has been a detailed analysis of this situation. So just to go over, so the intersection is here. This is Kaiheliku. This is Hanua Street. And this is Makila Kai. Consultation and meetings. I started working with Greg in about May, June last year. The first thing we did was we talked to Housing and Human Concerns. We also talked to the Planning Department. We talked to Public Works. And then by about September, we were ready to do an open house community meeting. We sent out invitations to about 200 homeowners in the neighboring subdivisions. We had a 4-hour open house where people could come in, ask questions, and about 30 neighbors attended. We have also met with Makila Plantation Homeowners Association separately. We've met with the West Maui Taxpayers Association, and Greg has talked to individual neighbors. We have met with many of the county agencies, Housing and Human Concerns. We've met with many of you individual council members. We've met with the Department of Public Works, Fire Department. We do not meet with the Police Department, but we received comments from them. And Parks and Recreation and Department of Water Supply, we've gotten comments from. We also met with the State Land Use Commission, the Office of Planning, and the State Housing and Finance Development Corporation. The draft application was published in December. It was sent out for comments to all agencies. We got responses back at the end of January. We responded to all of the comments. They're in the application in the last appendix. Timeline. So as Greg mentioned, Makila Kai is ready to build, and all workforce homes will be built as soon as approvals are received. Greg's going to build out all the workforce homes in one phase before any of the market rate homes are completed or concurrent with. The workforce homes are scheduled to be completed by 2019. And as I mentioned, market rate homes, we project as they'll be built out individually, maybe up to 2017. Sorry, 2027. I wanted to end on a positive note, and I wanted to reiterate some points. 25 families on Maui will own a workforce single-family home on a half-acre lot. We know of no other 201H project that has provided such large lots. Most have been multifamily or single-family on much smaller lots. I went through the Maui Island Plan. We believe that Makilakai implements this portion of the Maui Island Plan. Open space, including the Greenbelt Neighborhood Park and setback areas, rural-sized lots to maintain the rural character of the area and to provide for some self-sufficiency so people can grow their own food. Single-family homes to protect views. I'm going to end it at this point. I know there's probably a lot of questions, and we're ready for your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, members. First, I would like to ask either Ms. Ryman or Mr. Alameda if they would like to make comment.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, members. The department is in support of this project as it will bring much-needed workforce housing to Maui County residents. As you know, we have a severe housing shortage, and we feel that housing is needed in all areas of Maui County. We also would like to comment on Mr. Schnell's remarks about affordability and that people are finding that they can't afford. But what the reality is, people are having a hard time coming up with the down payment. The HUD guidelines are based on families' income level, and therefore they would be able to afford the monthly payments based on the 30% figure, but it's a down payment that they're having a hard time with. So we think that this $50,000 gift that the developer is offering to future homebuyers will benefit future homebuyers. Thank you.
Members, I'm going to open the floor for questions for the developer. After that, after you've run through that, I'm going to call the department heads, our department heads down one by one, starting with water. And after they finish, then I will be releasing them. We'll start with questions to the developer. The floor is now open. Ms. Cochran?
Yeah. What? Oh, like, where did he go?
I'm sorry, I had to get some water. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Schnell. And for your trying to condense this whole binder into the few slides there. I'm trying to figure out where I should start in all of this. I think overall, first off, and this could probably just be for, can you say whether, the whole rural, I'm looking at the map, and then you're singling out the center kind of lots, the 3 combined lots made into this Makilakai, but actually that whole rural strip, can you speak to like the ownership of that whole strip?
You mean where the workforce housing would be?
Well, no, the whole rural boundary, that whole section that was changed into rural.
Right.
And so, you're going to have Polonui Gardens, and then you have your folks, what you're talking about here in the center, and then the rural east on the south end. That whole entire project, I guess my whole thing is that whole portion had been taken to the land use. Application was withdrawn. Now it's coming back to us in this form, right? It's parceled out, it's segmented out, whatever you want to call it. But now you're just bringing us this centerpiece of that whole rural section as all this stuff.
Right.
So where did you take all of those into consideration also? I mean, the impacts. I know you're just focusing on your own, but for me to make a decision, it all matters, collectively. So I cannot just single out what's in this book and not think about the other 2 that fall side by side to this project. There's just no way I can separate that out in determining whether I'm approving this or not. So I hope, or maybe you can address that somewhere, somehow.
I can. Let me talk to a couple points. So the entire area that's in the rural growth boundary is 271 acres. Mm-hmm. It's 12 large lots. It was under one ownership at one point, and there was a larger project that was a little bit different that was proposed for the entire 271 acres. That project received much opposition. And because of that, the owners of those 12 lots decided not to go forward with that project. They subsequently sold those 12 lots to individual owners or different owners, and some of the same owners are still involved. But Greg bought these 3 lots that comprise Makila Kai. He's a separate entity. He's not partners with anybody. So when Greg first contacted me, maybe May last year, I was thinking, what are you thinking? Because, you know, we had a lot of opposition. PBR worked on the previous plan too. We had a lot of opposition to that plan, and people, you know, the owners pulled it out. So Greg came to me with this idea, and he said, you know, well, first he was talking about, you know, doing the expensive homes and the 3 lots, and then we got to thinking too that we could provide the workforce housing and we could go through the 201H process, okay? When we conceived of that idea, we thought the best way to go about this would be not to provide small lots, because we could have asked for 10,000 square foot lots or 5,000 square foot lots. So we went with the larger lots, we went with less lots, but we wanted to be consistent with the Maui Island plan, and we believe we are. Now, since that time, you know, the other 2 sides, you know, there have been projects proposed for those other lots, and there's various ownership interests in those lots not associated with Greg Brown's project. They've proceeded on their own. They got a later start than we did. We submitted our application now, back in November. It went out in December. As far as I know, they haven't submitted their application yet. I'm pretty certain about that, or their applications. So I think the council needs to look at what's before them at this point and what the benefits of this project are. Now, when these other projects do come in, if they do come in their current form or how they're planning, then I do think you need to look at the impacts of those projects in relation to what's already been approved if Makila Kai has been approved. Now, we're willing to coordinate with these folks if they're proceeding with their plans. We can do that. We can provide some connectivity. We can link the projects together. But at this point, all I know is that Greg is ready to build. So I can't really work with a hypothetical of somebody else that might come in with something else.
Okay, thank you. And so, Chair, one follow-up. So you do know for certain that it is not under one ownership, trying to piecemeal this thing out?
I do know for certain, yes.
Okay. All right, that was one of my main questions. And real quickly on what, I can ask about water? The water source. I think one of my hugest issues with this whole place and existing project that's active and people are living there is the water issue. Because Mr. Palakiku that came here, I know exactly what he's talking about because I was up there opening up these lois too. And yeah, it was really heartbreaking and really frustrating and upsetting that all that hard work, time and energy into something that is a customary kuleana practice got killed, died, because why? Too much water was taken for existing development that's already there. So now you're coming in and wanting to add more impact to that. So I read here that you're not going to touch Launiopoko, but my question is, what about Kaula? Because that's where most of the water is coming from, and where I know today is where most of it feeds into the existing project. So why isn't that stream on this list?
Well, first of all, let me say I understand your concerns, and when we conceptualized the project, we did come to meet with you in July, and you're the one that told us of this issue, and that's why we originally proposed not using any of the the non-potable water for this project. And we proceeded under that premise for quite a long time. Now, when things came to pass and we started to think about it, it's not a reasonable use of non-potable water to be irrigating rural lots with non-potable water. So we dug deeper into the problem, and we hired Tom Nance, who's our water resource engineer, and together Tom and Greg came up with this idea to drill a non-potable well on this property and feed that potable water or non-potable water into the irrigation system that exists, the Lani Poco Irrigation Company, so that the water that we're using is not an increase in stream diversions.
And follow-up, Chair. So again, my question is, you're not saying you are not going to tap into Kaula. Doesn't that reservoir take from Kaula? And doesn't, just first question.
I understand that that not irrigation water company comes from stream diversions.
Right.
Right. And it feeds into the reservoir.
And the stream is, the stream that the water's diverted from is?
I'm not sure the streams. I can ask our water expert, but I'm sure there's more than Laniapoco stream.
I think it's Kaula is the
Kaula.
answer.
Okay.
Right. So again, my question, anyhow, so I think the water is still an issue for me, and I understand you want to put another straw into the aquifer to dredge up more water in order, and that's good. You don't want to, but this is your private thing, and you're not tapping into our county source and what have you. But yeah, it's still, I think, in a roundabout way, still taking from the stream. You're gonna be still feeding this project with stream water, however way you want to talk around it, is how I see it. And so it's still a huge issue for me at this time.
Can I address it real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, Councilmember Cochran, when meeting with the water engineer, we came up with some of the same concerns that you had when I spoke to you once, which was about maintaining a storage tank. If I was to put my own storage tank there, he said the same things that you did. He said, these things will break, and then you're going to have this smaller subdivision without anybody knowing how to maintenance, and these people are going to have a problem. So what he suggested, so we didn't use any more stream water, was to drill our own well, pump the water directly into the line, and meter that right where the line goes back into Makilakai. Makilakai then has all its homeowners metered, and we'll have an agreement to always pump more water in right at the line than the meters show that are used, with a transparent agreement that can always be looked at from the county or anybody. And we feel it may help the solution, because not only will it feed Makilakai, but when the stream does get low, we would plan to dedicate this well to the water company, and the water company could then use this as a resource to help fill the reservoir back up, or help give more water to the current residents to help the current water problem when there is a drought. I'm not opposed to going back and looking at a storage tank option, but I believe the engineer thought that this was a much better solution that could make a determination the more stream water wasn't being used and reduce the maintenance requirement for the owners, especially the workforce owners. So I just wanted to.
Okay. Well, thanks for your explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And afterwards, we are going to hear from the water department to our water department. The floor is open. Ms. King.
Chair, thank you. One of my concerns after listening to the testimony in favor of this project was the level of income. I mean, we had somebody come before us who said she's, bringing home $28,000 a year. That person is not going to be able to qualify at the lowest rate. Is there anything that prevents us from going down to, or is it an affordability issue, that going down to 60% of the median income, which is my calculation is a little over $39,000 a year. And if you're trying to make payments on what you said was the minimum home price, which is $176,000, would that not be adequate?
We stuck with the requirements of Chapter 2.96, which goes down to 80% of the median income. If we needed to look at more affordability, the reason we went with the $50,000 gift is to bring that price
Well, no, I understand that. And that's why I'm saying if you're going to do that, is there anything that would prevent you from dropping that down to 60 or 70% of the median income to be able to address those? I mean, a lot of people who came before us and spoke today in favor, I didn't even see them as being able to afford it if their income is, if their take home is $28,000 a year.
Yeah, well, I believe the one woman that spoke, she said she was making $2,800 per month.
$2,800 per month, you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't do a quick calculation. Excuse me. We believe that, at the price ranges we have, we're going to have adequate buyers.
No, I know you. No, I know you will, Tom. I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is the people who might not be making that minimum, the 80% of. And is there any way we can address, the true, the people who really need this? And because your price is so great, I mean, it's a really good opportunity at that price.
Councilmember King, I believe that the Department of Housing may have told us. Sorry. I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the Department of Housing may have informed us that there actually is not a minimum income. The problem may be the minimum income applicant trying to get qualified by the lender. But I believe they are qualified and able to attempt to purchase the house, and we certainly would not deny them under the rules. So I don't think they would be denied a chance at buying it.
Okay, so as long as they qualify, they don't have to necessarily meet that 80%. They can be lower than that.
Correct.
Okay. And then the other question I had at this point, I mean, I have a lot of questions too, but when the bypass gets built, is that going to afford another entrance from Hokiokio Place into that subdivision that would come from the top down? You've got the road at the bottom part, but yeah, that one right there. Off the.
I'm not clear. Will the bypass connect to Hokiokio?
Yeah, it looks like it connects to it on there, but is that going to afford, because right now one of the concerns is only one entrance on that lower road.
Right.
But will you have another entrance from the other side?
There's currently no other exit or entrance to Hokiokio from this area. And those lots have been subdivided out, so it's unlikely that, like Hanu's.
Okay, well, it looks like, so the bypass doesn't actually go up there that high?
You can get on the bypass. You can get on the bypass at Hokiokio. There's just no internal access road through the Laniapoko-Makila subdivisions, allowing the current residents to travel across to there and get on. So they have to go to Kaiheliku and get on.
Okay.
Ms. King?
I don't know if he's, yeah, no, it was just confusing because it looks like it's right on the bypass. It looks like it's got access off the bypass, but you're saying it doesn't.
So Tom was saying he believes that Hokiokio will go under the bypass when it's all done.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it won't connect there. All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Members, anything? Could the audience please, you're not participating in this. You're supposed to listen. Please, be considerate. All right, members, if you don't have any more questions for the applicant at this time, I'd go here from the water department and start going through the departments. If you have, Mr. Guzman?
Well, I'm not sure whether we should go ahead with the departments first.
Because the applicant will be available all this time.
Yeah, I had some questions on the wastewater plans on the.
Proceed.
I heard from some of the testimony that there may be a perception that there would be septic tanks instead of a wastewater plant. And so could you explain how you intend to move forward with, or what are the repercussions that you anticipate, and how you would resolve potential environmental impacts?
So the State Department of Health does allow individual wastewater systems, which are septic tanks for certain areas, and if there's not a municipal sewer system in this area. So we are not proposing a wastewater treatment plant, and that was one of the concerns of the last project, actually, that people did not want a wastewater treatment plant in their area. We're proposing individual wastewater systems, septic systems, in conformance with all the State Department of Health rules. Now, there's very strict rules of how they're built and designed and what the capacity can be. So the capacity of those systems is a maximum of 5 bedrooms. So homeowners will have to, or Greg will put in the systems, but they're limited and they cannot take an excess amount of waste. They can only be limited.
I probably have to wait for the environmental department to come in and ask further questions on the detail on that. I have some other quick questions on the, let's see, in your presentation you mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were trying to go for an exemption from the West Maui Community Plan? Is that what I heard?
That's correct. Instead of asking for a community...
And then my question is, why would you want to do that?
Instead of asking for a community plan amendment, which is a different process, we're asking for this project to proceed with an exemption to the West Maui Community Plan. Now, I don't know when the West Maui Community Plan will be updated. I'm sure it's coming up. I've been hearing it's coming up soon for quite a while. We want to proceed now, and 201H process allows to ask for an exemption to the West Maui Community Plan. But the flip side of that is that the Maui Island Plan is approved. The Maui Island Plan does include rural growth boundaries, which we're in.
Amendment. It's by. That's good. Go ahead. Proceed.
So we're implementing the Maui Island Plan, and it's anticipated that the West Maui Plan would catch up to the Maui Island Plan at some point.
Yeah, I would probably have to ask legal counsel on that one, whether, in fact, I think you'd have to go through an amendment.
We can come back to that.
Okay. I have one more. Oh, yes. And it appears as though Mr. Brown, the developer, he has been, I guess, been working as a contractor for quite some time. He had mentioned that he's actually built roads. Is that correct?
So when I say I have my own road building crews, we've just been doing all our own grading on these large ag lots and building our driveways. Some of our driveways have been 2,500 feet long, which are pretty much a lot longer than these roads we will be building, but I have not built any county standard roads. I have recently hired a civil manager who was building roads his whole life, who starts working for me next week, who's going to be working for my company to help with the development. And I do employ one of West Maui Land's former employees who was the foreman who put in all the current roads, and he has been working for me for several years doing what I'm doing now.
Okay. So you would agree with me, you would have, I guess, the capacity more so to develop roads than other development projects. Would you say that would be a good, a fairly reasonable statement to agree with?
I think I probably build roads better than other general contractors because most contractors don't have the heavy equipment in the civil department. I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. So I guess I have a big niche, or I guess an issue that I've always pushed for in every development, and that is bicycle ways, pathways, and pedestrian ways and sidewalks. I always, and this council knows, every developer that comes here, I will always try to push that, and so if that is one of your exemptions that you're asking for, I am going to be disagreeing with that, and I'm going to put that right straight out on the floor that I will be disagreeing with that. I want the bicycle ways, I need the pedestrian ways, I need connectivity. So if what you've mentioned to me just previously is correct, then I see no problem in you trying to put in bicycle ways and pedestrian ways for these workforce housing development, which children and parents and everyone else connected to the neighborhood would be utilizing.
We do have we are planning a concrete or asphalt sidewalk or bike path on one side of the workforce house all the way to the park, and we are putting a trail, which we were planning a hard-packed graveled walking or exercising trail all the way around the development.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll yield right now. I have probably connect up questions to the department. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, our different departments have been waiting over here a long time. So no objection, I'm going to start with water and go through the departments so we can release them. We have Mr. Taylor here. Ms. Cochran, did you have any questions on water for Mr. Taylor?
Good afternoon, Mr. Taylor. Thank you for being here. And I guess, this project has no tie-in to our county water department or resource.
That's correct.
Right. So you folks, what part would you play in this whole project at any point?
Our only official role would be when the subdivision approval comes in under the water availability ordinance or the Show Me the Water ordinance. Our department would have to prove an engineering report prior to final subdivision that shows that they have adequate water for the subdivision. So we would review their engineer's report for general adequacy.
Okay. And if you found that it did not meet that?
Under the ordinance, if we found it didn't meet that, we would have to say it doesn't. We would have to make that known. The engineer reports usually meet that because they're stamped by licensed engineers. So, but we do have to review that. It hasn't come up before that it hasn't. We're not the regulatory agency, but we would review it.
Okay. And a follow-up, Chair. And so after all is said and done and this subdivision is up and going, people are living there, is there any mechanism or any oversight on your folks' behalf to go back and double check to see things are up to snuff and things are up to par as stated in these reports?
No, there is not.
Okay. And I guess maybe this would be for fire if they're here today. In relation to the fire hydrants, I guess it was stated, so my thing is fire flow, water flow into the hydrants. Would that have any type of oversight on your behalf?
No, it would not.
Okay. Sure, thank
Fire
you.
department is next.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for water, Mr. Hokama?
But you're required, isn't your department required to take care of the hydrant flushing and operational requirements of the hydrants, Mr. Taylor?
No, we would not. This would be operated as a private water utility that we would have no operational responsibility for.
Okay, so everything within the development is private.
That's correct.
Okay. Are you aware of any current application or legal case that's involved a regulatory or judicial body that may impact either COLA or any other water source for this project? Is there anything outstanding that we need to know?
Member Okama, I'm not aware, though I wouldn't necessarily be aware if there was a case. So there may or may not be some case, but we're not a party to any such case.
They wouldn't ask you for your comments as a regulator.
The State Water Commission might if there was something that involved us, but on the other hand, they might not. So, but I'm not aware of any actions in this area, but there may be.
Yeah, and I'm not up as much as Lanai, but is there any issues with the Island Water Use Development Plan with this project on allocations or anything else?
At the end of the day, regardless of what's in the Water Use Development Plan, the State Water Commission decides whether or not allocations from either surface water or groundwater can be made. And regardless of what this body decides, the State Water Commission would decide whether or not they're allowed to pump water from an aquifer or divert water from a stream. So that would still be under the purview of the Commission on Water Resource Management.
But where the water goes is still our jurisdiction, right? We set the allocation of what is the priority of use. To the ordinance.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what ordinance you're referring to.
The adoption of the water use plan.
Okay, so the Water Use Development Plan is adopted by the council and then sent to the commission for final adoption. And it doesn't have, I don't know that it has legislative bite to where even if there was an allocation plan, it's really a recommendation to the commission in any actions they take. Simply passing the plan doesn't make any allocations in the water use development plan law. They still take an action by the Water Commission on either a diversion permit or a well permit or something like that.
Well, I wouldn't mind testing that in court regarding local governance. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. King and then Mr. Guzman.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Taylor, can you address the letter that you sent on January 12th to Makila Kai folks, where you're commenting on the potential water use? That their original claim was 98,000 gallons per day, and then your letter says that based on the system standards, you found it to be 181,500 gallons per day.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So our number, very early in a procedure, is based on some very ballpark standards in this document called Water System Standards, which is used by all 4 water departments. And there is a table which just says that residential, if you don't know anything else, use either 600 gallons a day per unit or 3,000 gallons per acre. So what our department did, knowing nothing else about the project because it was early consultation, used 3,000 gallons an acre times 60.5 acres and came up with 181,500 gallons. That's all we knew. It looks like what their engineering consultant did is said, well, there's 49 parcels. They used a number of 2,000 gallons per parcel and came up with 98,000 gallons. That's normal to have that discrepancy at this early planning stage. I would defer to the developer about what their actual plan is. I'm not concerned that our number doesn't match their number. If we were taking this system, we would want to know more precisely what they're building because we'd be responsible for the tank operation, the pumping operation. But at the end of the day, they are responsible to make sure that their system is sized to adequately give the water. And the fact that these two numbers don't exactly match is common in an early planning level estimate.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Guzman, followed by Mr. Atai.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously this is going to be a private system, so we're kind of limited in terms of our maintenance, or not, our responsibilities, I guess that's the word for it. My question would be to, in your knowledge as being an engineer and being very familiar with water issues and construction and maintenance, you heard Mr. Brown, speak about drilling a well within the development and then pumping it up to the private entity, Laniapoka Water Company, and then bringing the water down. Does that, in your, professional engineering background, does that make sense to you? And what are the questions that you would, and I'm going to be relying on your expertise, is what are the questions we should be asking on how that should be operating, or if that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, as long as where they drill the well, there's an aquifer which is healthy, and as long as the State Water Commission says through their drilling permit and their pump operation authorization that they can pump that amount and they stay below that amount, they won't do any harm to the aquifer. Everything else is just cost. It will work. You can always put pipes in and pump water from one elevation to another and juggle it around. As a PUC regulated water utility, they will have to justify to the Public Utility Commission that what they're doing and what they're charging is reasonable. Otherwise, the Public Utility Commission won't grant them the rates they're asking for to cover the costs. So the Public Utility Commission will essentially be asking the questions you're asking, and won't. The Public Utility Commission's job is to not let a water utility, private water utility like this, overcharge their customers for poor engineering, for lack of better terms. So that would be overseen by the Public Water Commission, by the PUC.
Thank you, Chair. I had a follow-up question, but it would be pertaining to the Laniapoko Water Company themselves. And I know that we have Mr. Tom Welch here, and he's also the attorney for that company. And I had some questions for him that he had answered, and I would hope that he would share that same information with the council members on how this would relate to pumping, drilling a well in the development, pumping that water up, and being utilized by the private entity. And what are the incentives? Why would they want to do that? And what are the liabilities and things like that? So I kind of would like, if with the permission of the council members, if we could call up Attorney Welch to the.
We have already agreed that we can call them forward at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Could you please come forward and identify yourself at the microphone?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Guzman, Tom Welch.
Yeah, Mr. Welch, as we had spoke earlier, and at least responding to some of my questions, just to, I guess, put it more in a factual sense instead of pie in the sky talking. How is this type of drilling into the well and that type of operations, why is that palatable to the private entity, to the private company, and why would that work? And what are the, I guess, the repercussions, if there are any, if you could explain?
First of all, we're talking about non-potable service only. The potable water is being provided by Laniapoko Water Company, which is also a PUC regulated entity, and they're operating out of their own wells within the requirements of the Commission on the Seaworm in the state. So, and they have Tom Nance here too, who can back me up or correct me. But for potable water, there's plenty of pumping capacity, plenty of reserve, plenty of allocable capacity for Laniapoko Water Company for the potable service. What we're talking about here, though, is the non-potable water that is being provided by the irrigation company, which utilizes stream water. And there's two things that are happening. One is the Laniapoko, the irrigation company, the non-potable company, is in the process of developing a well of their own to help supplement the stream water supplied irrigation system. This well that we're talking about here is another well. This is one in which Makila Kai LLC, Greg, has committed to develop within this project. And the way it would work is, as I understand it, is that it would be, the water would be drawn out of that well, and I don't think it's pumped uphill to some. What I understand it was there's a irrigation line owned by Laniapoko Irrigation Company that serves the area, and they put it directly into that line with a meter. And so it would be service from the well to Laniapoko Irrigation Company's existing system, and they would meter it and make arrangements between themselves to make sure that the water, that non-potable water for irrigation that was being used for this project would not exceed, would not require Laniapoko Irrigation to supply more water than they already are needing to supply to their existing developments. Does that make sense?
The first well that you were talking about that Laniapoko Water Company is currently trying to develop, is that something that is supposed to be, I guess, to resolve some of the conservation drought issues that some of the testimony has been provided?
Yes, I think that I do legal work for them too, and their representative is not here, but it's my understanding that that's the purpose of that, is to help the overall situation, specifically with respect to stream use, because in drought times, which we've had from time to time since they've been operating, they have had to ask people to adopt voluntary conservation measures. It's all been voluntary. There has never been any shut off or limit. But in order to make the overall system work and not overburden the stream use, and I think they're drilling this well is in part with that solution in mind.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll yield at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Guzman. Mr. Atai.
Chair, I'd like to ask questions to our water director.
Proceed.
Director, the Makila Kai project developer is proposing to drill a well in Laniapoko. So which aquifer would that well be drilling from?
Member Atai, I don't know off the top of my head. I didn't bring my map with aquifer names on it.
Okay, so I know that your staff is currently going around the islands proposing their water use plans for our island.
Correct.
And I know I was in attendance of that. So they were talking about the water aquifers and the sustainable yields of our water. I want to visit, I know you're not representative of the state, but understanding where they're at. Seaworm, or the State Water Commission, is currently in the process and has yet to release what the sustainable yields will be for West Maui. And it's anticipated when?
Well, I think if you
45 days?
Actually, I think if you look on the sustainable yield of the aquifers,
yeah,
I think actually if you look at the Seaworm website, and I think it's under the tab that says planning, there's a map of the aquifers on Maui, and it shows the sustainable yield of each aquifer on Maui. And I believe there's a number on each and every aquifer.
Right.
So I think that there are existing sustainable yield numbers on the website right now of Seaworm that show what the sustainable yield of every aquifer is.
And if a person wants to drill a well, they will need to apply for a well permit to Seaworm.
That's correct.
And they would need to get approval. Normally, how long does it take to get that approval?
It depends, but those don't go to the commission themselves, they go to staff, so it's relatively administrative, as long as it's not a designated aquifer. So it's relatively straightforward.
Okay. My concern in this is the timing. I'm being approached with a 201H that has to have a decision done in 45 days. I've heard testimonies, 14 for, 14 against. A lot of the testimonies saying, questioning water, the status of water. And so we've already heard from the Kalo farmer, the status of water from the streams. And so then we got to go, the proposal was to go tap into our aquifer. My concern then is going to Seaworm and getting the okay from the State Commission on Water Resource Management. And from the earlier reports, my understanding from your staff was that there's, we're already at borderline levels of water availability and sustainable yields. I'm trying to connect the timing, hurrying up 45 days, and trying to figure out, is there available water for all of this development? So that's why I wanted to ask you that question. What comes first?
When my staff opines on this, essentially what they do is they go back to the Water Commission, find out what the status is from the Water Commission, and share that. We don't make any independent analysis. we do from time to time share what is public information from the State Water Commission. So it's really the Water Commission's decision on this about whether or not they would give a permit or not give a permit is really their call, and it's just not something we're involved in. We just try to share the information as best we can.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Atai. And any questions that come up, like the name of the aquifer like that, we'll have the answers by the next meeting.
And Chair, this is Tom Schnell. Could I interject something? We do have Tom Nance here, who's our water resources engineer, that may be able to provide some of these answers at this point. So if the council members would like to talk to Tom Nance directly, he can come up.
All right, members, I would like to keep it to the questions asked because we really have all these other departments that we would like to at least touch bases with to see if the members have questions for them. Proceed. Come down.
And Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair?
Oh, yes.
If I may, I would just suggest that listening to what the concerns are, I would suggest that a question that someone might want to ask Mr. Nance is simply, what is the current sustainable yield of the aquifer and what is the current draw rate on that aquifer? I think as an engineer, that's probably a very easy question for him to answer, and we'll probably get right to the bottom of the root of the questions I'm hearing.
Since he cannot ask the question, some member has to ask that question.
So asked.
Sir, Chair.
Thanks, Dave. I'm Tom Nance. I believe that the sustainable yield is around 7 million gallons a day. And the current pumpage, the only wells that are pumping are several of the Department of Water Supply. It's the Launiopoko aquifer, by the way. And what's going on with the 3 Launiopoko Water Company wells. And their total pumpage is relatively small compared to the sustainable yield. It's the total of the DWS wells, and this is on the order of 1 million gallons a day or so compared to a 7 MGD sustainable yield. Back in the plantation days, the plantation well pumps were pumping 15 million gallons a day from the same aquifer, primarily with skimming wells in the Makai areas, but they also had the irrigation return flow. A USGS study done a couple years back came up with a groundwater modeling thing that took a look at the Launiopoko aquifer and looked at what was possible to be pumped, and their number was 10 MGD, but quite honestly, I think that's way too high. I think the sustainable yield of 6 or 7 or so is probably a reasonable number, but forecast pumpage is still a lot less than that sustainable yield number.
Thank you. Mr. Okama?
I'd like that response in a written form from the appropriate governmental agency, Chairman.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Chair.
I think it's your turn, Ms. Cochran.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you, Mr. Hokama, to have it in writing. And thank you, Mr. Nance, for being here. So I kind of meant to ask who was here? Mr. Welch. So, because he mentioned 2 different company names. One was Launiopoko Water Company, and the other is Launiopoko Irrigation Company. Are they one and the same?
No, those are in fact 2 separate companies. Launiopoko Water Company is the purveyor of the drinking water system, has 3 wells that are its sources of supply. And at the moment, Launiopoko Irrigation Company, a separate entity, draws water from Kaula and Launiopoko streams and is in the process of developing a well at the foot of the Makila Reservoir to augment that supply in the dry periods. So that well is actually under construction. Maybe we're halfway through getting it completed.
So there's currently 3, so there'll be a 4th.
Well, the 3 wells are drinking water wells. The well that we are under constructing now is for irrigation purposes, not for the drinking water system. It's to augment the surface water supply for the irrigation system.
Right, and then Mr. Brown's project will also drill another well.
And that also would be for the irrigation system, again, to offset or provide at least as much water pumped into the system as is used by the customers in Makilakai.
Okay, and so, because I see conflicting gallons per day in this book that was given, it's telling me that 3 potable groundwater wells average daily capable of supplying 600 gallons per day. Is that about right? It's what I'm just reading, what's under 4.6.3 water in your book here.
Okay, not my book, but I'll answer your question anyway.
Did you have any bearing on consulting about the water here? In this?
Not on that document, but I could tell you what it is.
Okay.
Well 1 has a 350-gallon-minute pump. If you ran it 24/7, that's 500,000 gallons a day. Well 2 has a 100-gallon-minute pump, and if you ran that continuously, it's 144,000 gallons a day. And well 3, which is one that I put in, actually has a 500-gallon-minute pump, and that's 800-some-odd thousand gallons a day. So if all 3 were running 24/7, it's a little bit, it's like 1.37 million gallons a day. Current usage is averaging about 200,000 as a year on average, and in a peak summertime, it's about 350,000. Those numbers of the pumpage capability I gave you are a little misleading because there are salinity limitations. So my conservative way of looking at it is that as a year-round average, I think those wells can produce 500,000 to 600,000 gallons a day, and in the peak season, possibly up to 1 million. But they can't be run 24/7 and keep the salinity at an acceptable level. That's still more capacity than is needed for Makilakai added to the present users.
Right, thank you. And so, and with that comment, that's strictly the water from wells. So they already
For
have.
the drinking water system, yes.
So they already have enough capacity to supply themselves just from wells alone.
For the drinking water, yes.
So the tapping into streams then is because
That's
the
for the
non-potable
separate-
irrigation.
Yeah, a separate company providing non-potable irrigation water.
And the reason those are, you have a potable source is because those are pumped and then going through treatment in order to turn it, the non-potable into potable for the use of the residents.
No, the potable wells, other than chlorination for disinfection, there's no treatment. They come out of the ground drinkable. So the potable system doesn't have a treatment process to it other than chlorination for disinfection in the distribution itself. The wells that we're going to develop for the irrigation system are not likely to be of potable quality. They're going to be suitable for irrigation, used for irrigation, but not for drinking water purposes.
Okay, and Launiopoko Water Company has 2 potable water storage reservoirs. Are you familiar with the storage capacity and things too, or no?
No, not
Okay.
really.
Okay. Okay. And did you take into consideration at all in your calculations the I think next up and coming project next door to this project? Are you involved with that or have any concept of their usage?
I have done, speaking a little out of school, but I have done recently a study for the Launiopoko Water Company looking at adding Makilakai, the other areas that were blued in, I don't know what the term you used, and the full occupancy of the rest of the Makilakai. And when they get to a point down the road, they will, in fact, need a 4th well to supply all of those projects.
Okay, and perhaps also storage in relation to.
Yeah, although we could
But- and I
ask
know
Darren
that's not
Onimori
your-
about that.
I know that's not your section, but, okay, well, that's interesting. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. If there's no more questions for water right now, I'd like to call up fire, if they could come down, fire department, fire and public safety. And after fire will be police. Please identify yourself at the microphone.
Good afternoon, Chair and council members. Paul Hake from the Fire Prevention Bureau, Maui Fire Department.
Do you have any opening statement you would like to make?
No, Chair.
The floor is now open for questions. Mr. Hokama, followed by Ms. Cochran.
I appreciate you being here, Mr. Hake. So, with your understanding of the current traffic situation and your ability to respond from your stations, are you agreeing with their analysis that there is basically minimal impact to the road system with this project?
Councilmember, I don't have an opinion right now. I do understand that there is issues with traffic there, but as far as what they've come up with, I don't have any specific opinion on it.
Mm-hmm. How often does your ladder truck come out for response support?
Well, we did create a standards of coverage plan associated with our accreditation process.
Yeah. So for EMS, or how often does that truck come?
It looks like according to the that standard of coverage, we had about 1,800 calls.
So with their proposed hammerhead on that, can you take care of your equipment requirements?
As far as turnaround, if it's designed properly, yes, we can turn the truck.
Your ladder truck.
Yes.
Okay. And then any issues with fire flow numbers or pressurization requirements?
I don't believe so. We provide the standard that they need to meet, and then their engineers are the ones that are responsible for making sure that the system meets that required fire flow. So if we say 1,000 GPMs is required and we have a hydrant spacing provided, then their engineer designs a system to meet it.
Okay. Thank you for your responses. Thank you, Chairman.
Ms. Cochran?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Captain Hake, for being here. So for the fire, it says the fire hydrants will be spaced closer than required, and that is due to what?
I guess their choice.
It's recommended by County Department of Fire and Public Safety in order to increase fire coverage. So I'm just wondering what that means to be closer. Is it because of pressure? Is it because I just wanted to know exactly why that's being asked of fire to the developer to put them closer than normal.
Councilmember, I was not involved in the direct review of the subdivision, but there's a minimum that they need to meet, and we just push for that. If they want to do something that's higher than the minimum requirements, they're allowed to do that.
Right. So, do you know who did comment on
Yes,
this application?
it was one of our plan reviewers, but, if, I don't see them saying, oh, put these things closer, and of course it'll be better, but it wouldn't get no concessions from us, It would be, okay, you're meeting our minimum requirements, it's good.
And it says fire sprinklers obviously are most helpful. Do you know if the developer, and I should ask the developer probably, if they had agreed, or do you know whether they said, great idea and we'll do it? This is, I think, a recommendation or thought you folks added it in to say it would be good option to install sprinklers.
Right. So during the subdivision process, the design of the fire protection system is put in. And then once those requirements are met, there's requirements that come into play during the building permit process. And although you may have met the requirements for the subdivision, you may not meet the requirements for the building permit. So during the building permit process, we measure the distance from the structure to the approved water source, which would be the fire hydrant. And that distance is 500 feet along the approved route of travel of the fire apparatus. And so in these larger lots, I believe the 1.5 acre lots, that distance might be exceeded depending on where they place their home. And then so the option in that case would be to put sprinklers.
Okay, and it states possibly a good condition to have on flag lots, especially. The
Exactly,
sprinklers.
because that's probably where that distance would be exceeded.
Right. Okay. And so I guess it's been said at a meeting from a project that's next door, which they will all, seems like they'll all be utilizing this reservoir with Launiopoko Water Company up above to feed into this development, and it seems more like and likely with Polanui Gardens, which is right next door. And their comment back in December at a public meeting was the reservoir runs dry because of the absentee owners of the properties that have automatic sprinkler systems. So what happens? You folks need to get water off out of a hydrant, and that reservoir that's supposed to be feeding into that is not there. I mean, how do we, does the company gonna let fire department know when these droughts and times of dried up reservoirs occur to say, sorry, fire department, but we're out of water right now? I mean, I pray that never occurs, but what, in your expertise, what would happen? I mean, run me through a scenario with that.
If we didn't have water in the hydrants?
But I just want to know, where is the protective measure for these residents when these particular examples occur? And it's been stated that it happens. And so, God forbid, something occurs and you folks show up and you try and hook up your hose and nothing is coming out.
We're going to do the best we can with whatever situation we need to deal with. If there are some things that are not in place and we're required to be in place, then more than likely whoever was injured would have a civil claim and then would be dealt with that way. Of course, if that was a situation that we had to deal with, we would also try to address it after that matter. But until then, we're going to have to assume that the water is required, it's going to be there.
Okay.
Chair, could I add a comment or talk about water protection, fire protection?
Members, any objection?
No.
Proceed.
So the fire protection for this area draws from the potable water reservoirs, not the non-potable water reservoirs. So that's an important distinction. And also, I have Darren Unamori here, who's our civil engineer, who could speak to the fire flow requirements and the protection requirements.
Sure. Yeah, and reservoirs that run dry, that would be nice.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Darren Inamori. I'm the civil engineer for this project. Councilmember Cochran, to answer your question and to elaborate on what Mr. Schnell already said, the fire protection system for Makila Kai is provided through the potable water system. It doesn't rely on the open irrigation reservoirs. The water is stored in currently 2 water storage tanks that have a capacity of about 500,000 gallons. The fire department's requirements for single-family residential dwellings require a fire flow of 1,000 gallons per minute for 2 hours, so 120 minutes. Total storage requirement, 120,000 gallons. So the current tank capacity that Laniapoko Water Company has and the distribution system that they have for the backup their fire protection system is robust enough to deal with fire protection according to the fire department and the Department of Water Supply's fire protection standards.
Okay, thank you for that clarification and explanation. And do you know if it is being discussed to install the sprinklers?
If I could mention the discussion that Tom Schnell had mentioned we had with the fire department was with one of Captain Hawke's staff, Lieutenant Smith, and he did mention sprinklers. He was talking about it in the context of situations where the fire department would be out of range of the hydrants. The houses were beyond the serviceable range, so in that case, he did mention that sprinklers would be an option. As to your earlier question about why the hydrants were a little bit closer, again, good advice from Maui Fire Department. Because of the depth of the lots, we space them closer together so they reach further back into the lots.
Okay, no, very good. Okay, thank you. And wait, sorry, Mr. Unumori, you're also, are you part of factoring in the current seaworm studies that are going on in determining inflow stream standards and things of that nature? Are you involved with that? Do you have any comment?
No, that portion of the water studies I was not involved in, so I have no comment.
Okay, so you're strictly all the infrastructure, the water infrastructure stuff itself?
Pretty much.
Okay, okay, no, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Tai, did you have something?
No, Chair. He just addressed the questions I was just going to ask was in regards to Captain Ake was, my concern for fire involvement would be the fire flow, the amount of water, if there was available water, should there be a fire. And according to the report, it says here, fire flow, 1,000 gallons per minute, sustainable for 2 hours. And so he just answered that he has a 500,000 gallon capacity. So that was my, however, I'm trying to look at this big picture, and we're looking at Laniapoko as a whole. Earlier it was mentioned it was a 271 acre, then now piecemealed into 2 or 3 different smaller things. But for fire protection, we got to look at what if, when big fire comes through Laniapoko, the fire flow requirement may be enough to cover Makila Kai, may not be enough to cover the other subdivisions. So, what would be a truly, maybe the civil engineers can calculate that as to cover the entire Laniapoko for fire. I don't know how many subdivisions are up on that mountain, but,
I think that would be very difficult to answer for this committee at this time.
Yeah.
Anything further for water before I call down the police? Mr. Guzman?
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't sure whether any of the members had asked the question on the ingress. for the width and whether that was adequate enough for the fire department to enter into. I know that the presentation stated there was an emergency road for the fire department, and did you have an opportunity to review it, and is that adequate under your standards? And I believe that there was also a turnaround within the subdivision for a fire truck as well, and whether that was adequate enough to make the turn.
Mr. Rocky?
Thank you, Chair. The minimum requirement for road width, clear width, is 20 feet, and that's what's being shown. And the turnaround, of course, is going to be designed according to the length of our vehicle in that district, so would be the ladder truck. So I would have to say right now, without looking at it specifically, that it should meet. There shouldn't be any reason for them not to be able to provide what is required.
What about the location of the emergency road itself?
So
is that going to be an issue later on, or is that adequate?
I think it works good in this case because it's all the way at the end, so it provides everybody to go to the opposite side and utilize the emergency road. So if the main entrance is blocked, then everybody can go to that emergency road. So I do think it is designed properly.
Thank you, Chair.
Anything further? Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair.
And if
Thank
I
you,
could ask
council
the
members.
Police Department to come down. Members, I know it's late. Usually I always knock off at 4:30. However, affordable housing is one of the most important things that comes before us. So if there's no objection, we'll go a little bit longer and at least try to get through the departments. So we'll be more informed at the 31st meeting, the May 31st meeting. Please identify yourself at the microphone.
Council Chair, council members, I'm Captain David Silva with the Maui Police Department, stationed in Lahaina.
My name is Officer Tom with the Maui Police Department. I'm a community police officer out in Lahaina.
Do you have any opening statement?
No, sir.
Members, the floor is open for the Maui Police Department. Mr. Okama.
Same thing as fire, Captain. With the proposal, and you know the roads better than most people do. You agree with their traffic analysis that it's basically no impact?
Yes, sir. As far as their report, from what I've read, about 95 to 100 vehicles would impact at a certain time of the day, in the mornings and in the afternoon. That would be very minimal to the impact that we already have right now. This disruption in traffic is terrible at those peak periods. So those amount of cars, it's not going to make a lot of difference.
Okay. You add 2 more projects on either side of this project, and you add another 2 more 100 cars. Is that an impact for this area?
I would say it would be, but you have that bypass that's probably going to open. I'm not sure, when that's going to occur, but that would be more disruption in traffic, of course.
Well, again, we read in their consulting report, we see up to 2028. Yeah, and again, who knows when the state is going to put up their money to do the project. So that's the bigger question mark is when and if the state will perform. So for us, in the meantime, they're telling us that until it's done, the futures of this project, which is what we read is 2028. Can we live with the current traffic situation? And we're not going to get worse. So is that acceptable for us for the next 11 years or so? Or should we consider something to address traffic through this application?
Well, we should consider. You should consider something to address the traffic. If you're looking at the many years, we're going to have to deal with the traffic that we currently have now. If DOT is not going to provide us with any more funds to build any more the bypass.
Yeah. Well, I'm more concerned about, Captain, what you do with every time. We can build one more road. If we don't deal it smart, when we get the fire, all we're going to do is close 2 roads instead of 1 road. So does that really help us with traffic? I appreciate your comments, Department. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Chairman.
Anything further for the police department? Not. Thank you very much. And I'd like to call down planning. And we have Mr. Will Spence, our planning director. Do you have any opening comments, Mr. Spence?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking up this project and requesting that I be here. We are I think all the council members agree, we're in great need of housing, particularly on the west side, all over Maui, but, West Maui is unique in that it's one of our big job generators, and it's been a long time since we've had very much housing built over there. Thus, people have to drive from central Maui, and I have friends who drive from Kula over to work on the west side every morning. So I look at something like this, and I certainly recognize the need that there should be more housing in West Maui. At the same time, I look at our need for affordable housing, and should we just put it anywhere? I think some of the members are aware that I haven't supported some of the projects that have come forward. I had a very difficult time with Oluwalu. I really I outrightly opposed the project at Ma'alaya. I felt it just a poor living environment for the people who would live there. So I'm not saying it affordable housing at any cost. I don't think that at all. I think we have to consider proximity to jobs. We have to think of proximity or the living environment where these people would be living in, et cetera. And so I look at this particular project, and during the Maui Island Plan, I see how much was already developed on the hillside. I see it was a bedroom community made up of predominantly gentlemen's estates that are, bedroom community that, without any particular town center or, and I supported through the Maui Island Plan this particular location for an increase in density, for a small new urbanist kind of center. I'm really sorry that the original project did not go forward, but now there is, some projects being proposed for this area. My preference would be that housing would be closer to Lahaina and Kaanapali and Kapalua, but this is still, to me, this is still a good location. It's a lot closer to jobs in Central or Kihei or for the people that work on the west side or Kula. I think that's a primary consideration, being able to build over where the jobs are generated. I think to be able to have a half acre, my preference would be that they would be allowed to build ohanas, but that's, the representations of the project applicant. that's fine. I'm in support of this. I think this will be a good addition to that area. I think some density in that area rather than just a bedroom community eventually as the other projects come forward will be a good thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spence. Mr. Guzman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Spence, for being here. You mentioned earlier in your opening statement that it was unfortunate that the 270 acres, the original project, didn't go through. I heard testimony today regarding environmental impact statement, and there was, I believe one of the testifiers said that there's a conflict in the report that said that, look, originally there was a requirement for an environmental impact statement. Now, in this PBR report, it's saying no requirement for an environmental impact statement. Is there a reason for the discrepancy? And if so, can you explain?
Okay.
Mr. Spence.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is my understanding, and perhaps Mr. Schnell would want to address this to see if what I'm saying is right. My understanding is that the larger 270-acre project was originally going to go forward through the regular process. So they were going to have to go through the Land Use Commission to, Planning Commission, ultimately to the County Council for Land Use Commission for District Boundary Amendment, but to the County Council for Community Plan Amendment and change in zoning. Community Plan Amendment would be a trigger for an EIS. I'm not sure that that's the only trigger that where they started the EIS process early on. Mr. Schnell could confirm that or whatever. But since that time, since that particular project is no longer proposed, they're requesting an exemption from getting a community plan amendment. So that's no longer a trigger for an EIS.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Department. Maybe the applicant would like to weigh in on what Mr. Spence was saying.
Please identify yourself at the microphone.
Hello, this is Tom Schnell from PBR Hawaii. So what Will is saying is essentially correct. So, EISs are subject to Chapter 343, Hawaii Revised Statutes. In Chapter 343, there are 9 items that trigger the need for either an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement. The environmental assessment is a less rigorous document. The EIS is a more rigorous document. So when we went down the list of the triggers for an EIS or an EA, so for the larger project, Will is correct, they were proposing a traditional community plan amendment process. Okay, so that is an EIS trigger or an EA trigger. Okay, the other trigger for the other project was a wastewater treatment plant. So if you're proposing a wastewater treatment plant, that's an EA or EIS trigger. When we went down the list of all of the other triggers, none of these triggers, or actually all of the triggers, all the 9 triggers, Makila Kai is not hitting any of those triggers. So there's other triggers, for example, use of state or county lands or funds. We're not using any state or county lands or funds. We're not connecting to any county infrastructure. Another trigger is use within the conservation district. We're not in the conservation district. So as we went through the list, Makila Kai does not trigger any of those requirements for an EA or EIS.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
If
I could comment too. The application that's been transmitted, the big thick document, that can, even though an EIS has not been done or an EA has not been done, the material within this application is by and large the same material that would go into an EA or EIS. You have the archaeological inventory survey and materials for that. you have traffic study, you have information on infrastructure. So it's, while technically they didn't go through the 343 process, that information is provided for you.
If I could add to that?
Excuse me. That, do you want any further clarification? I just don't want us going over the same thing.
Right.
The same answers.
Is it going to be redundant?
It's going to reinforce what Will said.
Okay. I'm good to go. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
All right, members. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Hokam.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you. It's not often when 201 request before council also include a reclassification, okay? Which I find kind of intriguing. You want to bypass land use commission, even if it's under 15 acres. So tell the committee this afternoon, please, Mr. Spence, under the current designation, it's ag zone, ag classified, and you're aware of the sliding scale requirements by ordinance.
Yes.
What, under the current status, would this applicant be able to actually develop and build?
I believe,
Mr. Spence?
excuse me, I believe this project is comprised of 3 lots currently. So they would be able to do, and because the surrounding properties have already been subdivided, the larger, this should also be confirmed with the landowner. My understanding is the Launiopoko area has been subdivided out to the, pretty much to the maximum of the sliding scale. So these 3 lots are remaining lots, and they could not be subdivided any further. So they would be able to do 3 farm dwellings, 1 on each, and 3, smaller farm dwellings up to 1,000 square feet on each. And of course, any of the agricultural uses. But no further development without going through either this 201H process or through the traditional change in zoning process.
So actually, currently then, the answer is only 3 units can be built.
That's correct. Well, 6, provided they
do the accessory.
Correct.
Building, correct. Okay. So with this potential change from ag to rural for the 25 components, that could actually be rezoned and re-subdivided again?
I believe the representation, and depending on the restrictions, should the council put that in the reso, I don't think there's any plans to subdivide it further or to rezone it further. That, if they really wanted to do that, they would have to come back before the council.
Okay, so from currently the maximum 3 units, they're asking us to allow them to build 49 units and a conversion to rural.
Yes.
A portion would be converted to rural. And then your understanding with the exemptions under particularly number E, planning director, I'm trying to get a better understanding. So even under their proposal, they're telling us even if it's the remaining ag lands, we are to exempt all standards and that it'll follow rural zoning class requirements.
Okay.
Is that what they're asking us?
I understand for they said that they were, from what I understood, they want to follow the rural standards, which means, and of course, smaller lots, but also it would be somewhat different setbacks, the roadways, standard agricultural roadway is 20 feet. Standard rural roadway is, I believe it's 22. So there are some differences.
And what is to the county's benefit for this?
I can't answer that. What benefit doing the different standards would be.
Well, we're asking you as our professional planner because they're asking for a lot of exemptions. Okay, one, they're asking us to exempt them from half streets. They're asking us to exempt them from minimum lot sizes, size and shapes, asking us for exemption of a lot of things. So, as the planner, how does your department enforce when we are exempting all of these minimum requirements? What standard then comes into play, and what does your inspectors follow?
It's going to depend on, provided that this project passes by resolution, when the building plans come in, we will look at whatever exemptions or whatever standards that the council adopts, and we will review those plans accordingly. So if you say, okay, you have to build to, no smaller than whatever size, or if you say no two-story houses, we will review the subdivision for those standards, applicable standards, and the building permits thereafter.
And I would agree with you, Director, but I have not seen any attachment or proposal that tells me what the standards is after we waive all the requirements of the code.
Okay.
So I am concerned of how does your people
Okay, I would have to look
follow through and
a
enforce.
little bit closer at that.
Okay, Chairman, I appreciate the director's responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hokama.
Sure. Oh, and your mic's not on.
Okay, we have one more department, environmental management, but Ms. Cochran?
I just have a quick question for Planning Director. Thank you for being here. So I guess you folks, I know, I like your take. You're looking at this one snapshot of the lot and how it evolved from the bigger picture. And I know you were there spearheading the whole rural boundary, and I was going whatever will. And so here we are. But I guess I'm just reading some comments from some testifiers, and your comment about this big book here being the application similar to an EIS, EA, whatever. The big difference, though, I believe, is that the public doesn't get input in this document.
Yeah.
This is strictly all what consultant got paid, the reports, right? So I think that's a really big difference in itself.
Agreed.
So I like all the paperwork here and the nice colored maps and what have you, but that's what's missing in it. So jumping back to the bigger picture, the comment just really hits home with me in reference to, I know we have affordable housing, all those great things we need at this time, but it's the combination, that whole rural boundary area with the 3 different owners now looking to come forward to present, and here's the first one. So now we're gonna go, wow, great, we love the affordable part, we love all the stuff. Now, next guy shows up, well, look, you really like that, and I'm like, just like it. So how's about us? Let's, I got the same points and all the great bullet points and the great binder too with the pictures. Give us approval too. And now you get so it's just, to me, I am in West Maui. I do live the impacts each and every day and drive through the impacts each and every day. And I got to weigh all that out. And I just cannot put blinders on and be so myopic and go, wow, I really like this one, but I'm really taking it all in, just as, the bigger picture is what you supported too. And I didn't. But now here we are with the smaller third of the bigger picture. And I just, So, I mean, did you take that into consideration? I mean, where is that whole part in relation to this one application, you know, in the bigger picture, I guess, and the total combined effects that are going to, impacts that are going to happen to West Maui?
Mr. Spence?
Are you referring to this whole rural designated area and how that's combined, or?
Yeah, I guess, Chair, and then so maybe, I guess people are feeling they're kind of going a roundabout way to accomplish the first,
I can appreciate that.
The first end goal that they wanted to begin with, but went to the land use and got all the negative feedback and said, oh, never mind, you know, we're going to pull our application and now look at, here we are. Broken up into 3 different pieces to look like, you know, basically the end goal is going to occur, but in a different way. And I think that's where the people are seeing this affordable housing tool being utilized in a different manner to try and accomplish that bigger initial goal.
I appreciate that kind of comment. Because, and really the landowner should be the one to address that more than I should. When I heard, well, I already said I was disappointed when the larger project, so it could be planned as a whole, wasn't going forward. I was disappointed. But when we heard that there was 3 individual projects going forward, we met with the landowners together and we said, hey, you guys, you know, some of the biggest land use mistakes we've ever made on Maui, like in Kihei, where you have different parcels, you're not connecting them, you know, so everything dumps out on South Kihei Road. Let's not do that again. And I told them I would come before council and I would bring that up. So we sat down with them and we said, okay, you have to be able to connect these. There has to be connectivity between the properties. I mean, we're assuming that they're going to go forward. All 3 would go forward, but you know, these can't be planned in isolation, not little pockets, one right next to another. We have horrible examples of that. So they've informally agreed, yeah, okay, we need to go back and talk because this will be an issue at council. So anyway, I see Tom shaking his head and standing by the railing ready to say something, but yeah, we were very concerned to hear that there were 3 individual unconnected projects being proposed in the same location.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director. And I guess, I don't know, did you want applicant to chime in more or no? I'm good.
They promised me that they will connect. They will provide connectivity.
Members, not to cut, I don't want to cut conversation short, but it's almost 5:30 and we have one left, environmental management, and I would at least like to have him come down over here so we can have some comment. And remember, we will be meeting again on the 31st on this. So you can always hold questions till the 31st, or you can contact my department and we will forward questions to the applicants. But Ms. Cochran?
Sure. I mean, real quickly, and maybe I missed my boat on this question, but it's about lack of warning sirens in this area. It's stated in the application. I don't think probably Director Spence knows anything about warning sirens, but so I probably should ask fire somebody. Anyways, just a comment and probably a direct question if someone's going to install something to help assist this development and warn them about catastrophes are coming. So, anyways, okay, now I'm good. Where I live, I don't get.
All right, would you want to ask the applicant then?
Chair, sorry. Oh yeah, the applicant's here. I think he wants to. You have comment to the warning siren, sir?
Oh, the civil defense siren?
Yes.
So the state civil defense did comment on the project, and they recommended that a civil defense siren be put in this area. We're not opposed to that, and we'll make room for them, and they can put in a siren. That'll be fine with us. We have no problem with that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Could environmental management please come down? Thank you, Mr. Spence. Members,
Thank
I
you,
really
Chairman and
appreciate it.
members.
We went over an hour of our usual time. Usually I knock off at 4:30. But affordable housing is one of the most things that our members,
Thanks, Phil.
our community is asking for. So I think it's important that we give this all the scrutiny and the review that we can. Please identify yourself at the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Mike Miyamoto. I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of Environmental Management.
Do you have any opening comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have two areas of involvement regarding one being wastewater and the other being refuse disposal. So first I'll go with the wastewater. The wastewater they're proposing is very similar to the existing homes that are MAUCA of them. So basically, the state does not allow cesspool systems anymore, so we have septic tanks with leach fields, which is kind of good when you think about it because it keeps the water out on the property. It doesn't, that leach field is going to keep the clear water into that property. Our current wastewater system ends at Puamana, the development along the shoreline. So if they were to try to connect to that system, could be thousands of feet of pipeline at about $500 a linear foot for construction. You can imagine how much that would be. Regarding solid waste, there is an exemption in there. I think it's Maui County Code Section 804050. And if you look in the rates and fees for the council, that pertains to residential trash collection and landfill tipping fees. So this area is outside of our current residential refuse collection area, so we would not be servicing them with our residential service. They could contract that with one of these private haulers, similar to like how Waikapu, the Spencer subdivision has done, or they can take their trash to our Olawale transfer station where we do accept residential trash. Regarding the exemption that they're proposing, it's not something that we typically do for any project because it would be exempting landfill tipping fees, and how would we identify what waste would be relative to the affordable housing component of this project? So typically we wouldn't exempt landfill tipping fees. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The floor is now open.
Mr. Okama first.
Mr. Okama.
Chairman, thank you. Just so we're clear, Director, so from your department, your understanding is wastewater and refuse will be a private component out of this project. Nothing to do with your department at all, except whatever hits the landfill.
Correct. Yes, it is.
Okay. So, Chairman, hearing that, eventually, I hope we can get some cost estimates on what the potential affordable homeowner is going to pay, since water is going to be private, wastewater is going to be private, refuse is going to be private. More than likely, the roads, if we grant all these exemptions, going to be substandard to our code, so we're not going to accept the roads. So what does this mean to the lot buyer and their potential maintenance costs? Because we're not going to empty up tax dollars for this in the future. I think the lot potential buyer should be aware of what is their financial commitment should they wish to buy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Okama. And all this needs to be considered if we are going to grant these individual exemptions or not. Ms. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Deputy Director Miyamoto, for being here. So, yeah, I guess one of the exemptions is in reference to refuse collection. And we're not doing pickups in Launiopoko?
We are currently, no, it's outside of our current service area, and if the roadways remain private, as Councilmember Okama says, we wouldn't be on private roadways.
And we do not do pickups in Puamana, the gated community, Puamana.
No, the gated community has a private system. So in that area, they're gated. The Puamana area is gated, so.
No, Chair, thank you. Yeah, Deputy Director, I know, but I had been getting complaints, and I've been talking to our Lahaina Solid Waste Division, and they were questioning and wondering why they're being told to go pick up trash in those areas that I just mentioned. So they pick up in Launiopoko, they pick up through the gate of Puamana, and they pick up in some gated communities in the Honokowai Kahana area. So why is that happening? And why is it that you're sitting here telling me they're not? I don't understand. So if that's not supposed to be occurring, sorry, Chair, this may be off topic, but I just want to bring it in that if that's not supposed to occur and I'm hearing and seeing it is, then I don't know what's going on here. Just, I guess, an FYI at this time. Going to the wastewater portion, so this project is really highlighting how close they are to the ocean. Only walking distance, 1,500 feet away, what have you. And they're also showing what the soils and the makeup of the ground system is, and it's volcanic and porous and rocky in this leach fields that will be occurring. And if I look at the bigger picture once again, because I will, 250 units with cesspools and leach fields, I feel, are going to have an impact. I mean, do you have comments? I know we're only focusing on this one. That's still 49 different units that are going to have this type of setup, leaching down into the ground, and potentially not very far away is the ocean and our beach park and what have you. So did you have a chance to look into that scenario and comments at this time, please?
Mr. Chair? We haven't directly looked at it because the septic system is a permitted system by the State Department of Health. If you look at the lands that are above this proposal, you can see a lot of greenery. And so, those are probably where the leach fields are. And so when you look at the septic tank system, you have a concrete tank where all the waste collects. There's a resident time that the waste sits there, it settles. The clear water is what goes into these leach fields. So technically you shouldn't have toilet paper because that would clog your leach field. Any other organics would clog your leach fields. But it's that water that creates that greenery that you see on a lot of those residences that do currently have septic systems. So that water is cleaner than a cesspool. But obviously, it's not as clean as our injection well, which is at R1 quality water. Mm-hmm. So in this area, without the public service, that's the best that they can do at this point. There is a new system that's being proposed. It's some kind of an aeration system. It's almost like an individual plan for each household. And that is a little bit more costly because it requires grinding it. It requires air into the system. So you almost have like a little mini aerobic system for the household. That's a little bit more expensive, and it could make these affordables less favorable to look at cost-wise.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And one other question. Was there ever discussion in extending out our infrastructure to this area of the island or no, just too costly?
Relative to wastewater, you can imagine the wastewater from here goes all the way to our Honokowai plant. So currently, the Puamana plant we call it the Lahaina 7. So that's the 7th pump station all the way from the Honokowai area in the Kaanapali area. So we're experiencing odor complaints starting somewhere around pump station 4 because you can imagine how old this wastewater is. So, thinking about expanding it, not at this point. If the system does, there are pressures to expand it, we would look at some kind of alternative system, like we had talked about that, doing some kind of scalping plant that would then, take a lot of the water out of this. So we would have to evaluate that down the road.
Okay. No, very good. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Miyamoto? Mr. Okama?
Just one as curious, since you're an engineer also. So more likely they're going to have to keep sheet flow within the lot, and then you're going to have a septic tank with a required area for leaching. With what you know of the soil makeup in the black rock, or blue rock, whatever we want to call it, subsurface basalt, is that an issue of saturation or anything that we should be aware of?
Mr. Miyamoto?
A lot of that will be taken into account in the design of these leach fields because, it's not like you just put these perforated pipes in the existing soil. There's certain design criteria that you have to meet, and it has to be able to handle the water that's anticipated to come out of your septic tank system. So, and usually you plant grass above it so the grass can absorb the nutrients that are in the water and everything. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Anything further for Mr. Miyamoto? Thank you very much for your patience in waiting. We appreciate it. And thank you, members. Again, I really appreciate you spending the extra time. Again, the community has stressed how much they would like affordable housing, and it is up to us to provide the scrutiny to make sure that the applications that come before us are appropriate. Having no further business, I am recommending that we defer this item until May 31st, Wednesday.
No objection.
This item is deferred, and this committee, Land Use Committee meeting is adjourned.